fellow mutants. It is your girl Spicy Lady, and welcome back to the Mutants Only podcast, where we, the Brotherhood, review and discuss our favorite X-Men comics. Today, we're starting off with classic X-Men, written by Chris Claremont and Len Wein. But before we get started, I would like to move into the Great Ring, where I introduce all of the esteemed members. Everyone's introduce yourselves.
I'm Bearded Blerd. I like X-Men manga, especially One Piece and the Avengers.
What's good? I'm Blerd Central. I talk about comics, manga, everything Power Rangers, Tokusatsu.
Yo, it's your boy JB. I talk about comics. I love Attack on Titan, Jaegerist over here, Jaeger Nation. You already know what it is. Love X-Men, love everything comics in general. So I'm very, very excited that I was invited to be a part of the Brotherhood and be on this podcast. So very excited.
Yo, what's up, you guys? I decided to go last just because I'm a confident ass motherfucker. So it's your boy, the Mad Prince, also the son of Darkseid, Laburu himself. I am a man of many hats, as you know. I do a lot of things. I'm super excited to be here with Spicy and with this awesome ass crew to talk about my favorite comic book team of all time, which is the X-Men. I shouldn't even say a team, my favorite comic book family of all time. And the X-Men, shout out Wolverine. I am an editor, so I'll be editing these episodes that we get to share with you guys. Looking forward to it. Thank you, Spice, for giving me this opportunity. And yeah, you already know what the vibes is.
Yes. So look, y'all, this is a brand new podcast. I'm really excited. I love the X-Men, the fact that MCU, we getting a little closer to, seeing them on the live action screen. I figured let's just go through the comics and just look at the starts and we can enjoy it so that when it comes on screen, we can kind of see, all of it kind of transpire, what they take from the comics and, what little zhuzh they added new. But I did want to start at the beginning with the new X-Men, classic X-Men, which is just the Uncanny X-Men, but I guess renditioned up that Blerd Central ever so eloquently spoken to us about it. Before we get into the comics, I did want us to discuss just a little bit of Marvel's new comic run out that they're having next year. They announced they're in New York Comic Con, their newest slate of events coming over the next year. Starting off with Avengers Assemble in November, which is basically the Avengers are going into this multiversal spree, type thing, which is cool. And then there's Dark Web, which is where it's crazy. We getting a clone takeover with the X-Men and Spider-Man, Ben Reilly and Jean Grey's clone, and a lot of other events. So I guess I kind of want to ask you guys, what are y'all thoughts on this new slate of events, and how this kind of transpires with what we're getting with Krakoa and things like that?
I was excited with how they presented it, like they've been presenting phase 1 through basically 6 of the MCU. They say, hey, this is the Marvel comic book universe, and this is our big events going on. And for one, it finally, I say this for myself, and I'm not saying this is how other people feel, but the presentation finally let me know what this is your actual plan, because sometimes it feels haphazard with the events that are going on. And I'm like, wait, how does this connect? What is going on? When does this start? When does this end? And for them to do that had me excited. Like I said, the Sins of Sinister is one of the top 2 storylines I'm looking forward to. Number 1 actually being Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants, because it looks like she's going to be leading that. And any project where you got Storm as a lead, come on now, with Queen Aurora herself, come on, stop playing with her. So I'm looking forward to that. Sins of Sinister, I've actually recently become more of a fan of Mr. Sinister thanks to the Hickman's run. It's made me super intrigued, and also just his look, his aesthetic is this man is about himself. He got sass, he's flamboyant, I'm fucking with it, and yet he's so confident and so intelligent. Where it's yo, I still wouldn't want to be caught messing with guy. I don't even want to be in the same room with him, because somehow, some way, with his pride and whatnot, I'm going to be turned into an experiment somehow, some way. All right. But yeah, all these new titles look super, super interesting. for just fans of comics, fans of just nerd shit in general. Next year looks like a good year for Marvel fans. Definitely looks like a good year.
I'm definitely looking forward to this dark web stuff. It's like I don't want to like try and conflate and stuff like that, but it really feels like they're doing what was it, Dark Knights metal, but for Spider-Man. So it was like it's it's kind of there was this one issue, what's it called, Deadly Neighborhood Spider-Man. It came out just today, and just out of pure curiosity I was like, okay, let me pick this up. I think it was like $3.99, and I was shocked. I was like, yo, they did some stuff. So if everything is like this comic that just came out, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to see some a Spider-Man who laughs. I want to see some like that. Show me some crazy stuff. I want to see all of that. So I'm really excited about that. I'm mad about the fall of Krakoa, just because I'm hoping that they do something now. They haven't misfired yet, you know what I'm saying? Ever since Krakoa started with the X-Men, it's just been banger after banger after banger. So, you know, I got faith, you know what I'm saying? But I just love Krakoa. I just love this whole era. I love everybody coming together. I love them all just being just, you know, outside of persecution, you know, just throughout the whole X-Men, you know, history like we're about to go through. They've just been, you know, persecuted throughout the whole time. They've been, you know, they've been going through it this whole time. This Krakoa era is like, yo, we finally got some shit for us. You know what I'm saying? We got some money. We got that medicine. You want that? You can't have it. You can't, none of that. You know what I'm saying? Pay us money in hand. You know what I'm saying? I like seeing mutants like that. Everybody's getting along. And I'm hoping that they just keep somewhat of the status quo moving forward, and they just don't go back to, you know, everybody's fighting, everybody's always dying, something like that, you know, just keep it somewhat like that. But overall, Marvel got some bangers. Marvel got some bangers coming up. I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm really excited for 3 of these. Dark Web, Sins of Sinister, and Summer of Symbiotes. Like, these 3 sound amazing. The moment that we were talking about Dark Web, it kind of made me think of World War Hulk, where it's just like you have these characters that were kind of shunned by everyone else, and then they're coming back for revenge. And I love a good revenge story, so you already got me with that. Sins of Sinister, I mean, Abe already said it. Storm leading to Brotherhood. I mean, say less. Like, just give me the story. Anything with Storm, I'm ready. So, loving that idea. And then Summer of Symbiotes. Like, I love the symbiotes. Anything with Venom, Carnage. I just reread Darkest, what is it? Dark Knight, whatever it is. The I can't remember the run with Null. What's it called again?
King in Black. King in
King in Black.
Sorry, my brain went somewhere else
No.
completely. But yeah,
really fun story.
Just reread King in Black. Love everything with the symbiote, so very excited for that story as well.
I'm excited. I'm a big Marvel events guy versus like, you know, individual stories. So I've always loved like a good Marvel event, because a lot of the Marvel events really dramatically changed the world. I love Siege. I love Civil War. I love Avengers Disassembled. I love House of M. So I'm really looking forward. I'm excited about the other stories. Fall of X is something I'm really looking forward to. That's just like Blerd Central. I really love Krakoa arc. Like, I think it's just brought that, it not only just gave us something new and ended a lot of strife, but it just showed that the X-Men can form a nation, can form a country. They don't have to hide out in a school anymore. They can actually share their wealth. I love the dynamics of what they brought, and they're showing their power of force. I love how you brought all these mutants who were before, they were enemies, and now they're allies. So I'm curious to see how Fall of X actually like really weaves together this story, especially because we know right now it doesn't seem like right now they're bringing too much of Orcus into this. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do with Orcus in this Fall of X arc, and how they're going to actually show these guys being taken out, especially when we see Araco and see what's going to happen with that ultimately, knowing that they can't be resurrected. I'm just curious to see where resurrection goes, and if they're actually going to share this gift with the world, or is it going to end up being their downfall?
And that's the thing too, because as you mentioned before, we're used to them hiding out in school, operating as like a black ops team more than anything. But now with Hickman's run, we actually get to see what does a true mutant civilization look like. Like, how do they maneuver through the topics of security, of agriculture, all that shit, and still be able to tell such fun stories without it being so bland. It felt so original because, again, this is our first time really. And one of the things that I liked, and the big reason why I'm so happy to be a part of this group, is because now I have to do homework, right? Now I have to go back and really learn some shit. So when we went back to what we're going to discuss today, I was just like, oh, okay, so Araco Krakoa is not a new concept. It's just been redone and retold in a new way. Okay, and I'm like, all right, in this original version, damn, this was not as fun as like this shit wasn't sweet. So I like it, it makes me appreciate certain things that will come decades later that I can't wait to get to on this podcast, but also maybe appreciate where the journey started. Where the journey started for this X-Men by these wonderful writers and artists, which, you know, there's gonna be some ups and downs. There's some writers who we're gonna fuck with, there's some writers who we're not gonna fuck with. But each of them came and gave their own flavor, gave their own story, and it's just like, damn, the evolution of the X-Men. And you know what? That's absolutely right. Somehow I saw Sins of Sinister and Aurora and the Brotherhood and completely forgot about Fall of X. Fall of X is going to be super exciting because we all kind of knew that this wasn't sustainable. It's not sustainable because of who they are. They are going to always know conflict. You know, Wolverine has always been, he might have seemed so pessimistic, but he was a realist. You know, he understood like, yo, especially Psylocke. Psylocke too was like, yo, this piece shit, is it like, I ain't with it. It's not comfortable. I need something. We need something because we're not safe. Orcus showed its hand and they really came to fucking play and then they faded back. So now knowing that they're going to be really centralized in Fall of X lets you know that shit is about to get real horrifically bad. And I appreciate that we get to at least enjoy these stories.
One thing I'm just really curious about, something they started Krakoa arc with, is that they first that Moira McTaggart said they always lose. But then as we get further through the arc and we get into Destiny X, you find out that they always win. So I'm curious to see if there's really going to be a fall, or is this really going to be a change of life? Is Fall of X really mean Fall of X, or is it really just changing where it goes?
And that's what I thought too. I was like, I think it's just going to be a change. I don't think it's really going to be a fall. Because like with any civilization, it's always a change. Like, yeah, kingdoms fall, but do they really? They restart, they change, they regroup. So I think that's where we're gonna go in with the Fall of X, and kind of like going to X-Men Red with what happened with Magneto, everything he was saying about Xavier, like that being kind of like the pinnacle of all of this. I enjoyed this. So I'm excited for Fall of X. I'm really excited for Dark Web only because I really enjoy Clone Saga, Spider-Man Clone Saga. It was freaking a hot mess until the end where I was like, wait, Ben Reilly really was Peter Parker. Peter Parker wasn't like, it was a lot of like, wait, hold on. But I'm excited for Dark Web. I love Ben Reilly. Obviously Sinister. Yes, I'm here for it. Brotherhood Mutants, Immoral, X-Men, Nightcrawler, all of that. I'm here for it. And then that's really much it. I don't care about the Avengers and Summer Symbiotes. That's it.
Avengers,
that's it.
man.
They're
gonna show up. Like.
Exactly. Like, I really don't care for them.
Don't care about the ops.
Yeah,
really, right?
Yeah.
But back to what Abe was saying about seeing how none of this stuff is new information, just old. Working at Screen Rant, as I was doing a lot of Storm articles, I was doing a lot of research going back and like at old Uncanny X-Men with Storm and seeing how it's like they took, especially with A-Wing, took a lot of Storm's earliness into what she's going through and kind of like concluding that out of her and making her whole. I've been really enjoying that, from her being a leader of the Morlocks to her skills with knives to her figuring out herself as a leader and her constantly leaving the X-Men, constantly having this role of being like this, like not deity status, but just higher level Omega mutant amongst her peers, and seeing how she's struggling with that, even with her and T'Challa, same old bullshit, right? Her just figuring out who she is on her own without having to always be this second in command character that we've seen her be in. And that really inspired me to like want to start this podcast, because I'm like, bro, I want to see all of that as it all unfolds and these new issues coming out, as well as on screen MCU. So I'm glad that you guys are all here so we can talk about that. So kind of conclude today's all the news up. Yeah, anything else you guys want to say to kind of wrap up the news portion of Marvel Comics?
Apocalypse coming back. That's all I got.
Hey, they said Sinister is gonna make that look like a walk in the park. They were saying it's gonna be like way crazier than the Apocalypse War. So I was like, ooh, okay.
All I gotta say is, look, people always wonder where's a good place to start when it comes to comics. How about this? Y'all listen to us, y'all hear what we have to say, and just go off of that. You know, if we're talking about this one, you're like, you know what, I really want to peep that shit. Peep that shit. If you want to skip all the way forward to 2019 Hickman's run, peep that shit. There's no bad place to start, really. All we're going to do is just really just share what we've come to love and enjoy, geek out, probably debate some shit, because we can get into some really debatable topics, and I fully don't expect all of us to be in agreement with them all. But you're in for a really, really good ride. These are some knowledgeable people on the TL when it comes to stuff they care about. So whether it comes to streaming, whether it comes to anime, gaming, improv, whatever. So knowing that all of these people are really into X-Men, you know you're at this is a central hub of knowledge and intelligence. So tap in, you know, don't be afraid to hit any one of us up, to ask questions. Don't hit me up because I'm not a nice person. But it will be a fun time for sure. So y'all are in for a great ride.
I can't. Why would you say that? Something so nice to just be like, but not me though. Like,
they don't hit me up, I'm gonna ignore your DM. I'm gonna leave you on read on purpose.
Don't DM me, please. Just DM the account. I'll answer through that.
I'm crying.
Damn.
All right, y'all. So let's get into the first issue. I'm excited. We are warmed up. So issue 1, Cyclops returns from Krakoa with no powers to Professor X, and he informs him about what happened to the original X-Men, Marvel Girl, aka Jean Grey, aka Dark Phoenix, my girl, Polaris, Havoc, and Iceman. So what are our thoughts on this kind of like beginning segment where we're kind of like seeing that not only did Cyclops had no powers, but that all the X-Men are kind of like, you know, we're taking back Krakoa.
So for me, I thought that, okay, this is I'm in school now. I'm learning something, because we're meeting the original,
Right.
the OG X-Men class, which isn't Wolverine and all of them and Storm, is actually the kids. It's Cyclops, it's Jean Grey, or Marvel Girl, that she went by a lot often times during this period. It's Iceman. And so getting introduced with Cyclops depowered, and us knowing everything about Cyclops and how much he struggled with that, it's just like, oh shit, like, all right, is this technically a bad thing for my mans, or is this a good thing? And then it's just the dialogue. I mean, one thing that we talked about in the group chat when we started this in Denver is that, these early comics had a lot of dialogue. So here we're really getting to see Xavier and Cyclops interact, and we get a real good look into Xavier's mindset. And one of the funny things too was how Xavier was telling Cyclops, like, yo, you're ashamed of your gift. And it's like, you know how often I wish I could just walk with your motherfuckers? Like, like
Literally.
But you don't see me complaining. So, man, fuck up. So I do appreciate it. While it was wordy and it made reading a bit of a, at the end of the day, we're all intelligent people. Reading is not that hard. It does give us great insight. And again, it just makes you realize, like, wow, decades later, we don't see as much dialogue, but how do creators manage to give us this much information still without having to be worried? Because we see change of philosophy, change of approach. But yeah, with these first early pages, I appreciated seeing just exactly right off the bat, where are we in Xavier's mind? Like, how is he as a person? And seeing Cyclops so vulnerable, because Cyclops has so much history for a lot of us, whether you fuck with him or whether you don't. Seeing Cyclops so vulnerable in this moment right off jump, it caught me. It caught me.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of that real quick. Just to, follow up what Abe said, like I really like the dynamic between Xavier and Cyclops right off the bat in this chapter. I think that Xavier is a really good teacher, and this first chapter shows you that, where he's talking to Scott, telling him to like cope and just like not give in to depression and self-doubt. Like you have to fight through it and like own your power. Where great power comes great responsibility, that type shit. So I really appreciated that. It also showed like how human Scott was. Like we know he's the leader of the X-Men and he's taken on all of this responsibility, but at the same time, he's just a guy that wishes he had a normal life. And yet he sees his great power as a burden. Something that I really like that these chapters are doing is it also is educating you about their powers as well. So if you don't know anything about the X-Men, it was really cool for them to throw in that dialogue where it's like, oh, his optic beams can't affect his body. So I thought that was really cool. We learned some more stuff with Nightcrawler later on in the chapter, so that's cool as well. So I thought that dynamic was great. And then knowing that Xavier was getting to a point where it's like, yep, I knew this day would come where I would need another core set of X-Men, and how will they interact with the younger set that I pretty much raised and taught them how to use their powers versus these people that came out of nowhere that already know how to use their powers, have already had experiences. So he's already thinking of all of these things, and it also shows how human he is as well. He is an omega level mutant that can control the minds of every human on the planet, but he has to deal with these human issues of, again, blending these two teams of people together. So great start.
I'll piggyback off that as well. One thing what was very human to me, even though I didn't like how like what was said, it's I think it was very realistic for like the previous team to not really mesh well with initially with the new team members. I think that was just so on point because you have new, like you've been with this squad the whole time, y'all became a family, and who are these new niggas? Like coming out,
right?
Pop up, like you trying to run stuff. You in the house now, like
Right.
we were talking about before, like Bobby Drake, man, like chill
Hey,
out, bro.
we gonna get to Bobby because Bobby really was unwarrantedly just being a real like asshole.
Iceman was not
like,
chill at all.
Like,
no,
he was not living up to his name at all.
No, at all. Like, he wanted all the smoke. He wanted it. But we'll get into that. But I agree to what Abe and JB said, where like just these few pages where it's just like us introducing into Cyclops and his internal struggle with being a mutant, and also getting like a lot of backstory of how his abilities are used, and just more insight into like their relationship, Professor X and Cyclops relationship. I did enjoy that. Look, Cyclops is my favorite X-Men, but I appreciate these stories because I see the heavy shoulder that he has, not only with wanting to protect his family, with losing his, we've seen that, with the anime show with how he lost his family, but only how, and how that transpires to like right now where he's like, here we go again. Like I lost my family again and my powers. Like, what do I do with that? So I really did enjoy this story with Scott.
Yeah, I thought the exposition was done really well because like we got to remember this is a relaunch. Like there's some history going on with the X-Men. It started way back in the 60s, with just Cyclops, Iceman, Angel, Beast, and Jean Grey. And that was just like the whole team got when they were young, not even like teenagers. I'm talking like young, like 12, 10 years old and stuff like that. So going back and remembering like this is a relaunch, they covered a lot of like good ground with okay, here's who the characters are, here's where they stand before they got kidnapped and stuff like that. Like JB was saying before, there was a good there's good rapport between Cyclops and Professor X that just deepen. It shows more of their relationship that goes on about how Professor X is a really good teacher, even if he might be a shitty person. We can get into that later, but just all of that history that, and then it just, within 2-3 pages, and then it drops like just 5-6 iconic characters that will become iconic in Marvel history, like Wolverine, Nightcrawler, Colossus, Storm, just right, like just all in one page, and how that all just juggles all of these characters into one, and then yet we're still going on a mission. We're getting the old X-Men back, and then going forward, what we're probably going to be talking about is one thing that I really noticed is that, like, a lot of this is like the action is really like in the backseat. What I'm saying? You want to see what happens when they get home. What I'm saying? What's the drama with these peoples? Who's hitting on who's trying to, who's trying to get in what rooms, what I'm saying? Who's acclimating to who, but I'm saying, like, it's just it was really masterfully done. Like they said, there was a lot of words. It was very wordy, but there's a lot of exposition, and it's handled very well. So I was just amazed by how much information they were able to get through, like just in a 1-2 issues.
Right. So kind of talking to like iconic new characters, we go right into our new characters. Right after Cyclops realizes he needs to find new X-Men, we get Nightcrawler. This is kind of almost word for word, bar for bar what the anime series did. Obviously with little spins here and there, but I love Nightcrawler. I love his introduction. I love his playfulness. I love how he's like, yeah, he goes through the same thing a lot of mutants go through, but even way more because of how his outer appearance looks and how he's able to still be playful, but still look at himself and be like, I am different from people, but I am not a demon. You know what I'm saying? Like I am myself. I enjoyed his introduction. Like probably my favorite introduction. Wolverine's probably my second favorite one, but I really enjoyed Nightcrawler. So what do you guys think about the introduction of Nightcrawler?
Yeah, Nightcrawler is like one of my favorite characters in all of Marvel. So going back and seeing his introduction was just like, yeah, this is my guy. What I'm saying? He's been true since day one. The dude he is now, like, is the same dude he was before. I love it. And just knowing all of that stuff, like with his backstory, which we'll get into, which I thought was also masterfully done, like how they introduced all these people, but yet we didn't get no origins. Not one origin was told in this whole stretch that we were told. But just seeing him, he was snapping, he gagged. What's his man, Iceman? He was just like, yo, you looking at me weird, but what is you talking about? What I'm saying? He was there and not with the bullshit from day one. And I'm just like, yeah, like all these there's a lot of other characters that change, so some for the better, some for the worse, but Nightcrawler's been the same, man, since day one, and that's my guy.
Bearded.
Nightcrawler Nightcrawler's not my favorite character, not gonna lie. I like Nightcrawler a lot. I think he's really cool. I do feel like I loved his introduction though. I feel like it definitely, like y'all said, he's been one of the most consistent characters in all of Marvel. In general, like even right now in Krakoa arc, he's still like even trying to battle and the moral dilemma that comes with the Crucible and comes with resurrection. So I love his character. I love his playfulness. I enjoyed that, like, even despite being hit with so much controversy from other individuals not trying to welcome into the team, he's still like, well, I'm here, man. I'm here to stay because I found my home and this is the only place I'm gonna be accepted. So I'm gonna make the best of it regardless. So I definitely appreciate that. I feel like out of all the mutants, he's the one, and I feel like what makes his character so important is that we see all these other mutants who look like regular humans, and you would never know they were mutants, but he is actually a mutant. Everyone's, and I'm not trying to say everyone isn't a mutant, but he is actually a mutant. So I really appreciate his character as a whole and what he adds this early on in the franchise. And him even call us is like, you can hide your powers, but I can't hide shit.
Right.
Yeah, I'll echo all of that. Like, Nightcrawler has been very consistent since the beginning, and I think it's because he's such a well-written character. Like, Nightcrawler is a man of faith. I love the fact that he refuses to condemn people even though they're absolutely terrified of him. I do love that part of his character. He refuses to stoop to that level because he believes in putting that good faith forward. So I really love his character. I love how he's interwoven into the rest of the team. I love how he interacts with them in X-Men 2 in the live action film. He has one of the greatest opening scenes in any comic book movie ever. Love Nightcrawler. He's one of the best characters in the X-Men period.
Yeah, honestly, like everybody said, though, the one common word throughout all this entire discussion when it comes to Nightcrawler is consistency. How he's been consistent from decade to decade. The only differences might be that now the new version, the current version of Nightcrawler is more lyrical with when he speaks. But still, it's just that wisdom. And as I read more about Nightcrawler, as I get older, I start to not really resonate, but kind of have fun with just reading about this character that takes time and really talks about the heavy shit. He's super philosophical, super intellectual with everything he says, and it just makes you kind of wonder. And when you give him a lot of lines too, you kind of seem to have a conversation with him because he's working his ideas out for us. So we get to see his thought process, and it's just like, damn, like, oh, okay, that's a spin I would have never took it. But it seems like he reacts to the reader too, because then he thinks of the other side, and it's just like, yo, Nightcrawler really is a fun, deep, complex character. And for us to really start off with him in this new search for a team, like Bearded said, this is an actual mutant. Like, we see everybody else has the human features where it's like, all right, hey, let's throw some anime in there. Let's talk about My Hero Academia. Similar situation there. You got the heteromorphs who are not human, who don't look human, and how they get persecuted in a different way. Bam, Nightcrawler is that prime example. Nightcrawler don't look like a man. He's a humanoid demon, depending on where you're from in the world and how you view him. And there's no hiding it for him. He cannot hide it. This is who he is. And I really appreciate it because, again, it sets the tone of what X-Men is going to be about. This ain't no walk in the park type shit. This ain't no like, oh, people are just whining because they have these powers and whatnot. Like, no, they are being persecuted. They are being hunted.
They hit on some real shit, especially with Nightcrawler. Again, like we'll talk about later on, but even just his birth, like this is a man that was born from like not literal, but people that look like demons and inhabit a realm that is demonic. Like I'm talking about fire and brimstone, and through all of that, like when we get to that part, like the stuff that his father put Mystique through, and then you see all the stuff like why Mystique is even such a bitch to him, all the damn time. But it all makes sense, and it's all just I love the juxtaposition, because it's like through all of that, it's like my father is a literal demon who led a crusade against God, and I still have my faith. That's one person. He, other than maybe like Matt Murdock, he probably has the most unshakable faith in all of Marvel Comics, and it's amazing.
I love that, and like no, literally, I remember watching the cartoon, and I almost cried on that introduction of Nightcrawler, where him and Wolverine have that conversation of faith, where Wolverine's like, I've been alive since before you was born, and shit don't change. And to see how you ain't the guy in child praying to Jesus, you ain't think like you ain't think got
so many wars.
Right, no, literally, and so but I love just how patient and calm Nightcrawler was with Wolverine, and how their friendship, we see that even these early issues, how like the start of their friendship starts to form because they're both persecuted for different things, but kind of like similar. So I love that episode of Nightcrawler. And again, when Wolverine was in the church praying, I was like, oh my God, please, I can't.
Nightcrawler is a great foil to a lot of these dope ass characters. Because when they interact with each other, when anybody interacts with Nightcrawler, it's never really a dull moment.
Because you're having a real conversation.
To see another layer. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, again, Wolverine and Nightcrawler's interaction, I think, is the most fun for me because of how Wolverine has such a pessimistic view. Rightfully so. given everything we know about Wolverine, rightfully so, he's been through some shit. He's seen the worst of humanity and whatnot. He's lived for so long.
He knows what real monsters look like.
Exactly. But having that versus Nightcrawler, a person who's viewed as a monster, a person who's seen what monsters look like too because of the persecution and the hatred, and yet he reacts completely differently to Wolverine.
Right.
You know, and it just makes you think like, okay, there is more than one way to feel about this. Because easily, yeah, you know, me growing up, I was like, yeah, motherfucker, I'm Wolverine, you right. Fuck these humans. Ain't nothing good about Wolverine. I'm a mutant too. Yeah, I got claws. Don't even worry. You can't see them right now. You can't. They still growing, but I'm with you. These humans ain't shit. But then you get to Nightcrawler, you're like,
my brother in Christ.
Right. It makes you want to find God. Like maybe I should find God too, because the way
he's
like my brother.
The way you're able to see the positive, the way you're able to kind of reason with it while not sacrificing or compromising yourself,
exactly,
it's impressive. It's like, look, Nightcrawler, you're a better person than me. I'm still Team Wolverine, but I hear you. I hear you, brother.
I hear you.
So kind of going into that, or we seg right into Wolverine, where Homies is at his second job in Canada, and well, you know, Xavier pops up. So I love his interaction. Wolverine was like, "Hey yo, what's the details?" And then Kenneth's like, "Hey yo, Wolverine, you can't just leave." He like, "Screw y'all niggas, like bye. This seems fun." So I really enjoyed that. Very much Wolverine, very much on brand. So like, what were y'all thoughts on that? Because it was very quick to the pace, which is Wolverine. So I loved it.
I love the fact that we see him in suit already. You know,
oh
this
yeah,
is
right.
a classic suit, and it's like, yeah, he entered the scene with that from jump. Like you said, second job. You know, he just comes off so much as a mercenary. Like, look, man, I'm just here to fuck shit up. If I get paid for it, cool. If there's alcohol involved, cool. If there's some bitches involved, you know, I'm there too. That's where we get with it, and just seeing the bluntness of such a character against Xavier is like, damn, Xavier's trying to assemble a proper team. We just went from a deep, complex man in Nightcrawler who's being persecuted to this just rough, rowdy, like
who almost kills a man for
yeah,
telling him what
yo,
he can't do.
like you think you got me? Like, hello, I'll fuck this whole shit up. Like, it's like, oh, okay. So we getting rough riders here. All right, bet this man Wolverine, he about the shit. Like if Nightcrawler ain't gonna pull the trigger, Wolverine, he don't even pull the trigger. He just gonna let out the claws and let it shake, let it shake and bake. So it's just like, you know, again, it further cemented why I fell in love with Wolverine. I'm just like, yo, this cat, he's just so unapologetically him. You know, he does not shy away, and that's the thing. These characters do not really shy away, especially the early ones, from who they are. Their self-confidence is through the roof. Their assurance in themselves is just so impressive. Because just a small spoiler, when we get to Aurora, she's just like, let's understand some things here. It's just so fucking impressive and badass.
But Wolverine says right here, he was like, unless you have courage, you have any further objections, like, is you gonna fight me, like you can't really stop me, you know what I'm saying? Blerd Central, like, what are your thoughts on it? Kind of make sure we all get even.
Wolverine is just, he was just a menace from off the jump, you know what I mean? And I think that, like, just like what he said, it's just it was so unheard of at the time, because even like I said, before X-Men got relaunched, this was a team that was Stan Lee's X-Men. That was a superhero team. That was a by golly, you know, we're gonna, oh, I got you, let me save you, Marvel girl. And you know, I got all of that. And then just to have somebody with this, you know, killer crazy instinct and all that was just so revolutionary for that. And he already brought fanfare into the book, because remember, this was the only character actually that was introduced a year prior to this book. Actually, he was introduced in the Incredible Hulk 180, 181, technically 180 in the last panel, blah, blah, whatever, that's the whole thing. Anyway, he was a whole year later and earlier, and you know, this was Canada's first superhero and all of that. So you know, people loved this character just off that one story in the Incredible Hulk, and then them bringing them into this X-Men comic was just a huge fanfare. Everybody came in and was just like, that's the guy I want to read about. Yo, he came in, he don't give a fuck. He's hitting on Jean Grey. Remember, this is the 80s. He's like, wow, yo, yeah, fuck that guy Cyclops, man. Yo, get him, yeah. And it was just, and it the way it's written too, it's like, it's so sleazy in like a real way that it's like that's actually one part I don't look at. It's like, actually, this didn't age. I mean, or this did age pretty well, because I was like, yo, like, this is for real. Like, my man's is a menace and he's coming in, and it works because of the where Jean Grey is in her life. Again, she's the damsel in distress all through her life. She doesn't even want to be an X-Men. We'll get to her, in another part of this, but what I'm saying, like, just the way he comes in, just yo, what's good, Red? This is where it's at. Come to the winning team.
Oh
you know
my
what I'm saying?
Don't fuck with a real nigga.
That's what
Y'all are
I'm
so
saying. It's horrible. It's horrible, and I love it, and I love it so goddamn much. And what I mean, and Wolverine just the one-liners that he's just dropping throughout all of the first 2-3 issues. You can see it's just like he's not that. Because we got, after Wolverine, we've got a slew of Wolverine copycats, what I'm saying, let me be the dark, broody, animalistic guy, what I'm saying. But the way he's written in here, he's like, he's a dickhead, but he's like, this is real, what I'm saying. He's has converse, exactly. It's like he's not going on every single body in the mansion, what I'm saying. He's relating to people, what I'm saying. He's getting into fights with other people, and it's all part of the drama that makes X-Men so good. And that's probably why he's one of the most popular characters in all of X-Men and all of Marvel.
Yeah, JB.
Yeah, I love Wolverine's introduction. Like, instantly, it's like, yep, that's Logan. that's exactly who he is. And I just love that there's just so much layers to Wolverine. Like, on the surface, you could just look at him as this brute with claws, right? But he's so complex. This is a guy that has a century of life, and most of that was stolen from him with the Weapon X program. Like, he's dealt with so much loss. And then again, like, we'll get to it later on when it comes to Proudstar and everything, but it's like there's so much layers to him. You can see that he's genuinely a nice person, but the world hasn't been nice to him, and he's just jaded, and he just understands how to navigate this world, right? So I love how complex he is. I love that just within this first chapter and these first 4 chapters, you learn so much more about Wolverine's character. Like, when he snaps at Angel, right? Like, you can see on his face he instantly regrets it, but it's that animalistic part of him from everything that happened to him with the Weapon X program that he can't control those actions sometimes. And it's like, you can see it kills him, and it's why he wants to stay away from people, because he doesn't want to hurt them, and he doesn't want them to view him as just a monster. So love Wolverine, man.
Piggybacking off of what JB said, I think that's like the coolest part of this chapter. And I feel like if like we were in like 1986, I would have this different perspective. But like, knowing we know about Wolverine and knowing that he is this rugged guy, for him to join Professor X and the X-Men says a lot about where he wants to go. He doesn't want to be this monster, but he also understands the set of skills that he has and what he can do. And he wants to join. He joined Xavier because he wants to see a change in himself. Him hitting on Jean and stuff, that's just part of his character. That's part of the suave as a man that he is. So I think that's really cool and dope. But just seeing, my favorite part of this chapter was just seeing him show his vulnerability and showing that, like, no, I'm a bad person, and Jean actually being empathetic to him, being like, no, like, everyone has some growing to do, basically, right? And I think that was, like, honestly, like, my favorite part about Wolverine's introduction to this chapter. Like, I'm just a guy who's trying to change but doesn't know how. And I appreciate that.
Right. I agree. So to kind of progress, we're gonna skip over Banshee. Banshee, 2 panels. We ain't gotta talk about that. Let's go into Storm. We're gonna go into Storm. Now, this is a chapter I read so many times for research. I've read this so many times, and it's so Storm's introduction is so indicative of where she is at currently. Like, this is where she started off on a high platform. You know what I'm saying? And now he is on and X-Men Red, another high platform, but now it's more like sentimental, where it's like these are people that are looking up to me. How do I serve them? You know, I am not a goddess, which is where she starts off here. You know, they are not serving me. I am not part of this planet, but this planet is my child. So how do I serve these people here? So I love the start of this where Storm just like, I am a goddess. I am she. Who are you, bald-headed man? Like, what do you want with me? And then for Xander to be like, you're not a goddess. You are a mutant, ma'am. And she was just like, oh, okay. Let me follow you. I don't know what that means. All right, let me see what this is about. So, what were your thoughts on introduction of Storm? Because first of all, the narrator was like real in love with Storm because he was like, she can float. He was real. He was real, like,
as he should.
You know, like, so what were your thoughts on? I guess I'll pull it the JB.
Yeah, so I thought this was a cool introduction to a mutant period. It was great to see somewhere else that's not America, and to see the people in Africa reacting to her ability to control the elements and to view her as a goddess. So I thought that was really, really interesting for her character introduction. And like you said, Spicy, when Professor X shows up, and he tells her that she's just a mutant, and why don't you use that power to not just help people here in Africa, but all around the world, people like you that may not have full control of their powers, people like you that look different, that don't have that protection, and you have the ability to do that. And I love her humility into be like, oh, cool, maybe there is more that I can do, because as we've seen with like gods in other comics, in movies, they're very arrogant. They're very self-centered. They only serve people to serve themselves. And Storm was a true servant to Africa, and she wanted to serve the entire world. So this was a great introduction to Storm. Absolutely loved it.
Yes. Bearded Blerd.
I loved it. I think one of my favorite parts, and I always try to like look in the lens of like when the comic was produced, just to see like, this is 1986, man, to see a Black woman just dignified in such a way, and just to see her like even though she found that she's not a god, but she's a mutant, it's still like, yo, like she is that motherfucker. Like she's really like, she's that bitch. She's my language. Like, cause it's just like she's not a god, but she damn there is one. And that's just to see her personality and to see her just so free flowing, and especially in this chapter, to see like, like even when Warren's hitting on her, she's just so like oblivious to it. And then she's just naturally assuming that this team, everyone has good intentions and no one's really trying to flirt with her, and everyone's just trying to be like, all right, like you're
and why she feels comfortable to be herself, which means make it.
Yeah, it's pretty great. So I really enjoyed her introduction. I think like it goes to show like what we already know about Storm is just like, and that makes me so excited because it's just like we know how badass Storm is, and it's just like unfortunately we don't get to see how badass she is until like decades down the line. But just to have her introduction and have another person just present it and especially a Black person and a Black woman present it in such a way, it definitely just warms your heart to be like, all right, like immediately that she's going to be someone significant in the team, especially when she cracked Wolverine. You already know, like, all right, like she's pretty fucking badass. So yeah, definitely. And how she checked Warren too for throwing the first blow. Love that too. So yeah.
Yeah, so for me, again, this was, like you said, Spicy, clearly the narrator was wildly in love with Aurora. Like, I've never seen a Black woman done so well, just introduced so strongly in a mainstream comic before like this. I was just impressed by, right off bat, they're telling you Aurora is a goddess to her people. Like, they view her as such, but she's not arrogant in that sense. She's like, hey, I don't need your sacrifices. Y'all need them more than me. I will do this for you because you guys need it. I felt some type of way low key when Xavier said, "Sure, you ain't no goddess. You're a regular mutant, This is nice what you're doing over here. You're doing your thing over here in the land of the Black folk. But I can give you the world, which may not love you, but does need you." And for her to, take him up on that offer just shows how not shallow of a character Storm is, because Storm could have just been like, bye, wheelchair man. I'm going to continue providing for my people here. And instead, what she does is just like, huh, okay, no. Let me see what this is you're talking about. A world that needs me but may hate and fear me. All right, let's get it going. Because we all know throughout Storm's history, she does not have the easiest time. She is constantly questioned, underestimated by other powerful men characters. You know, Spicy, me and Spicy are at odds because I am such a big lover of Doom, and Spicy has expressed her disdain
I
for
can't
how
stand
Doom
Doom.
has approached
It's the
Storm before
disrespect.
in the past.
The
For
the
me,
constant disrespect.
I understand, but I would like to venture that out of all the disrespectful niggas, he is the least disrespectful, I guess. You know, he still recognizes her strength, but Doom is also one of the most arrogant motherfuckers. So he's not gonna bow to no one.
It's the oh yeah, this cute over here. What you got over here with this little planet y'all got? You know that wasn't invited to. But if you don't need help, you know I'm your guy. Storm said, "Oh, y'all, you know who I am because you forgot
but
what my name is."
It was just great. You know, Aurora is a beloved character, one who people need to respect, because I gladly like to mention this every time Storm is brought up on Twitter. Like a year ago, people were like, "Oh, Aurora versus Princess Diana," and I'm like, Princess gonna get her ass clapped. Please stop playing with Storm. Y'all don't understand just how strong Storm is. Don't be fooled just because she don't get portrayed as such a powerful entity in movies and in the show. Storm will fuck you up. Storm is low key, you know, a galactic threat if she needs to be, just given the extent of her powers and just how much she can see and just feel because of her connection to the earth and just her connection to the people as well. So I will forever die on that hill. I love, you know, the character Wonder Woman. I'm a big DC fan first and foremost, of course. But Princess Diana, don't step in Africa, because Aurora's gonna get you hemmed up. Gonna get you hemmed up. You know, the Greek gods won't help you. I'm sorry, they won't. So
you're gonna slice you and dice you.
Just like she did. Because that's the point. Yo, just Storm, I think, like, it can't be understated. Probably the greatest a Black character, male or female, has ever been handled by any comic company.
Yeah,
she has been, ever since her debut all the way up until now, she's been treated with like reverence. I'm talking about leaders, I'm talking about omega level mutant, talking about, you know what I'm saying, causing cosmic storms, you know, I'm talking about leader of Mars and the entire solar system. Every time you see Storm, it's always, she is one of, if not the most powerful person in the room. And, you know, you got to give it to them, you know, because, you know, back in the day when they were making Storm, you know, I can't remember, Len Wein and Dave Cochran, yes, those two guys who was creating these characters, you know, eventually or actually wanted to have them as a male. And then it was actually the editor Roy Thomas at the time that was like, you know, we need to have a little bit more diversity in this. You make that character, who at the time was, I think, called Typhoon or something, and make that a woman. And then they decided, okay, well, how about we make it a woman from Africa, and just add something, I don't know, whatever was in the water, whatever clicked over there, whatever time traveler went back into, you know what I'm saying, Marvel Comics and really did that. They did that shit, because ever since then, they ran with that shit. And again, she is the most reverent. I'm not even talking Black, but it's just on top of the fact that she is Black, just is more special to us. You know, it's a panel of all Black people, so I think it'll come up more than once that Black people have not always been depicted the best way in comics, but this is a character that has, since day one, inception, been a staple in all of Marvel Comics. You know what I'm saying? She's always there. And like as everybody was saying, the narrator, just everybody's in love, just again because the editor was in love with this. They was just like, he was probably in there just like, you know what, this don't have enough Storm in it. You know what I'm saying? Write me another story about Storm. You know what I'm saying? And Stan Lee was right next to him because, like I said, it was Roy Thomas. That was the successor to Stan Lee. So he was the editor-in-chief the first time that Stan Lee stepped down as editor-in-chief. So that man, that was his protege right there. So Stan Lee was right behind him, like, you know what? Yeah, you know what? Let me write a story about Storm. And they just threw it in there. You know what I'm saying? And again, like with X-Men Classic, there's a whole bunch of things like that where it's sort of like a director's cut where they just throw extra stories in there because, you know, there's a bunch of stuff that was, you know, cut and all of that, you know, editing back in the day was much different than it was nowadays. But like I said, just the most revered female character in all of comics. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, like Abe was saying, above Wonder Woman, you know what I'm saying? Wonder Woman is there, you know, Storm is up here, you know what I'm saying? With the dub, you know what I'm saying? Well, I always will say it. Look it up. Marvel versus DC. She's got the canonical dub over Wonder Woman. Fried that ass up. Just like she fried up
people like to forget that
everybody.
Shit.
People don't talk about it. Just like she fried up Cyclops, just like she fried up Wolverine.
all the Summer Boys, fried them right up.
Remember what I said in the beginning of this episode when, you know, you might recall when I said don't message me. I will retract that and be like, I am a friendly, approachable guy. You know, just don't harass me in the DMs, right? But I did say you was gonna learn some shit. I just learned some shit. I didn't even know that it was the editor that gave birth to us getting Storm presented in this way. Because I just don't see this character clicking if it's a dude. I really don't. It just feels, you know, even if it was a black dude, I just don't know if it has that that it would with.
No, because it was.
Y'all gonna learn something. Y'all, I said it already. I'm not gonna say it again. Y'all gonna learn something.
I love that. That's why I'm glad I assembled this group of special individuals. So kind of clearing over Sunfire. You know, not really gonna get much to this character because he kind of pieces out towards the end where he was like, I don't want nothing to do with y'all. I don't know why I came here. I got an empire, and don't call me, don't text me. I will not come back. So that was kind of a waste. But Colossus, I love Colossus. This our big gentle giant. I loved his introduction. I loved how they handled having a Russian character given the climate that I feel like, you know, America was with Russia and all of that propaganda. So the fact that they took a really gentle giant approach with this character, I really give to like the writers of this, because it's like, well, y'all really could have went a really different route with this. But I enjoyed it. Kind of briefly, what are you guys' thoughts on that? So we kind
I'm
of like,
so glad you brought that up, because it's like, yeah, this is like one of the first real Russian characters ever since that. Like, people don't realize superheroes, like as a concept, were created as propaganda. That's what everybody says, you know, like it's military because it is. It was created as like World War II propaganda back in the day. Superheroes, it's like these guys are fighting against they never explicitly said like Axis countries or anything like that, but it's like they're fighting with the Allies, so you should too, and stuff like that. And you know, when World War II ended, superheroes fell out of vogue. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was sci-fi comics and horror. But when superheroes then, you know, came back and stuff like that, again, this was 74. So like right after that, this was like right after the Cold War and all of that stuff. So it was like, you know, wild how well that this character was treated, especially like being a character from Russia, being a character from, you know, the USSR. That just everybody was, this is like the 70s where everybody was still like, you know, like deep into like the Red Scare. If anybody doesn't know, the Red Scare is like, you know, oh, you're a communist.
Exactly.
Like, people were for real getting witch hunted out there.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is yet another amazing allegory for, you know, he's not just a mutant, but this is somebody who's getting persecuted just being here in America, you know. So, you know, it's wild how Chris Claremont just was like, I'm gonna get this, and like, This is gonna be a Russian character in 1974, and y'all are gonna love him. He is gonna be a motherfucking staple in this goddamn team, and that nigga did it. That nigga did it. Like, I love Pitor. Pitor is that nigga.
Honestly, it is really crazy because, you know, just remembering everything I learned. I was a history major in school, and I love history. So during this time of the Cold War, as Central already mentioned, Blerd Central already mentioned, yo, the paranoia was at an all-time high. You seen some of the stories, you know, you seen certain movies come out of it, like Billie Holiday versus United States.
Right.
That was around that time, and how they communism, the fear of communism was used to propel a lot of anti anything agendas. You know?
Who was that man in government who was like kind of like leading the witch hunt? I forgot his name, but like he was getting like everyone for just small slews of just stupidness.
He was the head of FBI too, wasn't it? Hoover?
Yeah, I think it was Hoover.
Was Hoover?
J. Edgar Hoover.
Yeah, right before he became president.
Yeah. Yeah, like yo, so this was a super bold fucking move, right? Again, we already mentioned with Aurora, you have this strong black woman character. Again, you gotta remember the times. Civil rights movement was in full swing.
Fresh.
You know, a lot of things have been happening. Yeah. Now you bring in a Russian character, which, again, like Blerd had already said, during this time, who's really gonna fuck with this character? Like, and also, not only are you introducing a Russian character, but instead of being like, oh, here's a Russian character that we can all hate against, be like, yo, this is communism right here. like we are I don't care about all that shit. No, this is a Russian character that I want to introduce you to, that is going to have so much depth just because of where he's from, his own loyalties to his country, and it doesn't feel political. Because how often do we get people who like to complain like, oh, this is such a political move? These, you know, especially nowadays with the move to be more diverse, people think it's political. You see this, and it's like, where's the political agenda here? Is he telling us to love communism? Definitely not. He's not saying that at all. But he said this is a Russian individual that you don't have to be afraid of, because Russians aren't bad. Like yo, well, let's get all that communist stuff out of here, because y'all already so scared and y'all are gonna feel some type of way. But let me give you an insight into this Russian identity. And like you said, Colossus is he's the shield of this team. He's the shield. The pain he goes through as a character, the constant doubts he gets, because when I started reading this is while I was almost caught up with Hickman's run. And at that time, Pietro just got arrested because people were like, hey, yo, you know, we had some, we think there might be a mole. And you know, big fella, yeah, you've been a foe and an ally. So, you know, like, hey, big dog, we just got to bring you in. It's like, wait, hold on now. You know this is wrong and shit like that. It makes me appreciate Colossus so much, honestly. He's such a strong character, such a impressive and admirable character on top of that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, definitely covered my feelings. I think like one of the coolest parts about adding Colossus to the team, it just adds to the diversity of this classic X-Men, especially considering that, like, you know, like this is really like a diverse team during a period of time where they were, I mean, there's people still fighting against diversity, but this is when they have media's in full swing of putting it out there that we're not doing diversity and inclusion. But here with this classic X-Men, like, you really are like you're really like crossing the line and showing them that, like, all right, like, we're not only going to show discrimination against mutants, but we're also going to show and add some people in here that normally wouldn't be on the team together at all. You're not going to see a Russian and an Indian and well, now he wasn't gay back then, but all these individuals on a team together, working together and getting along and actually caring about each other. I think that was probably the coolest part about Colossus. And I've always been a fan of Colossus, and I've always liked how they've done Colossus in general, not only like with this run, but also like with Ultimate X-Men, how they made him gay. I thought that was pretty cool. I just think, like, you know, and then like with later comics, Astonishing X-Men, how like, you know, made his relationship with Cat just really like prominent. I just really love what they have done with Colossus, and I appreciate how he got his start on the team. But y'all said everything I wouldn't say anyway. So
for me, I like Colossus because like I love how humble he is, and in a weird way, for me, Colossus kind of represents like the American dream, if that makes sense. Like you just see someone that came from another country coming to the U.S. just trying to make the best of life for himself and for his family. And like I love that it's not political. He is just someone that just wants to do good. He's a humble guy. He works on a farm, works construction, does whatever he needs to do to put food on the table for himself and for his family. And he sees a sense of responsibility. I believe it was Abe that said that he is the shield, right? And he knows that. He knows that he can be that asset to a team of people that are going to protect other people in the world. So I love Colossus as a character. He's someone else that is very, very consistent throughout. No matter who writes Colossus, he's pretty consistent. He is a true hero, and I love getting to know him in these chapters.
Right. Kind of like what everyone's been saying. Like I love they introduced him to show you like this is just a family man. This is someone who wants to figure himself out, just like anyone across the world wants to. We're all just humans trying to figure out our place, you know, and what we can add to it. And I love how Professor X even said was like your powers belong to the world, you know, because Klaus was like, don't what that means I belong to the United States, and he was like, no, the world needs your abilities, like not just America. Like this is bigger than that. So I loved how they touched base on that, where it's like, this is not, don't worry about them. Worry about finding who you are, doing good for what you want to do. Okay, so quickly we're going to get into introduction of Proud Star, and then we kind of progress a little further because that was a lot with these introductions. Love them. So Proud Star. I know we all had our inklings about the introduction of Proud Star. There were some things that, you know, with Native Americans that were not represented well here. But you know, you can't. Again, this is the 70s, so they for what they did, I'm pretty sure they did the best they could. But I guess I wanted you guys' thoughts on Proud Star introduction and just his character and the conversation that him and Xavier have, where he was like, bro, like why would I come join y'all for what? You know what I'm saying? So I guess Blerd Central.
Like you said, like we were talking so much about like all of these were so amazing for its time, like Storm, and you got, you know, even Wolverine being Canadian, and you know what I'm saying, like Colossus being Russian. There had to be one, and you know it was Proud Star, and you know what I'm saying, it's just there's a lot of it's not even like overtly like, because you could tell like, yo, these people were trying. You know what I'm saying? Like they were really trying. And you can see it in some of the context or like subtext with the exposition about like Storm too. It's just like, oh, she's so like, she doesn't know civilized nature. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like we're going to get later on.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, she's
it's
just
so
naked.
innocent.
Yeah,
right.
You know, it's like
Yeah,
she doesn't care about being naked. Obviously, people in Africa don't wear clothes. Are you serious? You know what I'm saying? It's just like, you know, there's stuff like that. And again, like it's the 70s, but at the same time, it was just like with Proud Star, I guess it was especially egregious because there was so little regard for the nature. It was just like, okay, we have an Indian, which they keep calling him Indian instead of like Native American, which again, like, and you can't blame the stuff because this is stuff that, you know, we've just been learning like in the past like 10 years. You know what I'm saying? Like the Washington, like where I live, you know what I'm saying, the football team just now changed from like the Redskins to like Washington football team. So I'm like, this is stuff that is just now been changed. But it's like, you know, back in the 70s, we can applaud that, you know, he was at least included and stuff like that. But it's like clearly they did not know anything about what they were talking about, like whatsoever. Like, yeah, it wasn't malicious, they just didn't know anything.
We have to, as realistic people of this world, we have to understand that as many good intentions that were made, they're not going to get everything right. You know, this is how they understood indigenous people at the time. And this was their attempt to kind of present them in a strong way, you know, rather than as a victim that they're usually portrayed in the media. And as like savages, they're now presented as like a confident individual who's like, hey, yo, I don't need the white man. Relax off that. Like, you see me cooking, I'm thriving and whatnot. You know, but at the same time, they ended up perpetuating some stereotypes. But it comes to a point where are you going to appreciate the thoughts, or are you going to criticize the execution? This was a different time. Now you don't have that excuse, right? But Proudstar was so interesting because it was impressive to have him in, and it was kind of impressive to as quickly take him out. Like to me, it kind of stayed true to the idea of like, yeah, this is how the indigenous people do not need us. They don't. They are fine on their own, and so this is how I'm kind of interpreting it for me, is that he introduced Proudstar to iterate that point and removes him. Like, yeah, no, we're not going to have this man, here. I'm not going to continue just presenting like they don't want nothing to do with us. So I'm gonna respect that. And it's like, all right, okay, all right, it's interesting because this is an OG member technically. He's a version 2 of the OG team, and he's forgotten about. So I thought that was interesting.
It was interesting seeing his introduction, just seeing like how arrogant they made him and how adversarial they made Proudstar, because it was just like, dang man, like as you said, it was a lot of ignorance, right? And I feel like they were trying to portray a certain attitude and a certain animosity that he possibly had for other people outside of himself and outside of his culture. And I don't feel like it depicted Native Americans well. And again, I don't think it was done maliciously. I just think it was just done out of ignorance. But his character as a whole, honestly, despite all that, I actually kind of liked him. And I liked a lot of that because, it was just like, I understand how it is to be a Black man in corporate America. So I understand like not wanting to sit with the white people at lunch. You know what I'm saying? I understand, we're going to hang out. I'm here to do my job. And that's pretty much it. And I feel like I gotta work twice as hard to get even like half of what you got. So I'm just gonna keep going my way. And understanding like how I was earlier in my career compared, and then thinking about Proudstar, I'm like, was I kind of a little like that a little bit? Yeah, I was, maybe not as like, bold and brash, but the same token, I was just like, I ain't really fucking with y'all really like that. I'm just going to come here, do my job, do what I can. And we'll find out later, make my little self-sacrifice, which is kind of detrimental to myself. So I definitely understood his character, but doesn't mean I liked everything they did with him. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, when I was reading Giant Size X-Men, some of these things are kind of offensive a little bit. Like the fact that he's literally like illustrated red, it's absolutely ridiculous. The terms that they use, the things that he says, it's really offensive. But it's just like with Claremont's run, you could tell that they were trying to come back from that and try to really portray this character. And I'll be honest, Thunderbird was one of my favorite characters from the new regime, man. Like, I'll bring this up a little bit later once we get into Mourning, but it's just like, this is a character that wanted to feel needed to his tribe, his family, for himself. He wanted to prove himself that he was just as good as the best, that no matter what he looked like, no matter where he came from, he was just as good as anybody else, right? And that's where that arrogance came in as well. So I love the way that he was written in this newer version, and we'll get into it a little bit more, again, like I said, with issue 3, but he ended up being one of my favorite characters coming out of this story, and it's just kind of tragic to see where he ended up, but yeah, can't wait to get there.
Yes. So as we progressing, we're gonna move into the rescue mission. X-Men Assembled. And so now we're going out to rescue the original X-Men. This is where we get a look at Krakoa and the abilities that it has. That it used Cyclops as a messenger, and how it feeds off of mutant abilities and powers, which I also enjoyed that they gave us a little tidbit. And basically the X-Men sent it up into space, which is also very funny to where where we are now with Arako, where like we went up to Mars to space and all that. So it was like it's really cool to see all of this happen and see where they progress now. But I guess like what were you guys' thoughts on just like that introduction of Krakoa, and that little like kind of quick tidbit? And I do want to say is I love this art style. I think it's Ackerman's art style. I like his art style the most because it looks so much like realistic with like the human faces. I was saying this earlier. But yeah, so whoever wants to go first.
I like that they kept Hickman and them kept this consistent tidbit about the need of Krakoa to feed on mutant energy. Except now they made it. I won't give spoilers, but it's such an interesting topic in the 2019 run when it comes to that. But here it's just like, oh shit. Not only are they dealing with like prejudice from human beings, but they have a fucking island that just wants to consume them. Like what? It's like, what is this? There is an island that is traveling this world, just drifting, that is looking for mutants to consume. That is frightening. It's just like, damn, not only am I dealing with just the constant prejudice of people thinking like, oh, I'm a freak, oh, I look different, they're afraid of me. It's like, oh, then not only does this island just want to feed on me, it can produce its own like defenses and monsters too. So now I just got to it's as if this is hell. We're in hell. As a mutant, I couldn't help but think, we're in hell. This is what hell on earth is like, because what is this? Is there no catching a break? And so I thought that was just a really impressive but creative, like, yo, this is the first baddie. Because that the first baddie is usually someone just you wanna test your character, show them like, all right, this is what they're gonna go up against. But it's nothing that is like too big, for the most part, or else you just introduce a big bad and then just be like, all right, you won't see him for a while. Krakoa came in just on one. Just again, everybody, your life is in danger. The X-Men team got hemmed up. The island can nullify your powers. So, hey, you ever thought it would be a human? How about I make you feel like a human and you still gotta deal with an island that just wants to consume you? I thought for a first intro that was great. It made me appreciate even more so the importance of Krakoa as the decades pass on with the storytelling, and how, when we get to Hickman's run, and I'm constantly going to be talking about Hickman's run, so I guess y'all should already start there if you're not going to start here with Claremont listeners. But we see Krakoa have this like symbiotic relationship with them, but here it's parasitic as fuck. So, man, I was just off the bat. I was like, damn, Krakoa, I was rooting for you, and now I'm like, no, Krakoa, your first iteration was a monster. You an asshole, I gotta read the current version and be like, hey, is Krakoa gonna snap? Is Krakoa gonna be on some bullshit? So it was great.
I looked at it like I looked at it kind of the same way as you did, Matt, but I also looked at it in a way I was just like, damn, like they really are ignorant as heck right now. Like they don't really know how important this island is. And I think it was really cool. What was really, really cool to me was how he was communicating with them. Right, like right now when Hickman's run, like we see like the only person who can communicate with was Cypher, but now we see he actually has other ways of communication. So I'm curious why they didn't keep that up. But it was just what I love seeing the most out of X-Men, which is the coolest part of me, is I love watching them use their powers to work together. And you actually like that homogeny that goes on with the team. And it was really enjoyable seeing them actually work together, get on that ice platform, throw him into space, Storm actually work together to actually throw him up there and be like, yep, all right, we're done. And we hear his death cries. And it's just like, oh man, like that was really cool. Another thing I really thought was really cool about the introduction of Krakoa is that, and something I wish they kind of would have did more of, but I guess they didn't know what they were going to do with Krakoa, was kind of like show more of Krakoa's personality and like, I guess like, I wouldn't say why he's doing what he's doing, but like maybe showing out like ulterior motive to why he's doing what he's doing. I thought that would have been a nice little caveat to add into there.
Yeah, for me, I love the exploration of Krakoa. I love that this entire island is a conscious entity that's feeding off of mutants. I think the coolest part for me is just knowing that not only are people mutated, but so are other parts of the earth. Like, what other places, other continents, like, there could be things all over the earth that have mutated similarly to Krakoa. So just the thought of that takes my nerd brain into a bunch of different directions that I just want to learn as much as I can. So it's just like, for that, it was just really interesting to explore different types of mutations, to again have this living island that drains energy and again suppresses abilities and can send someone on tasks without them even knowing, just to show the advancement of that mutation. It's really cool.
That part, I was like, this island plotted to bring more mutants by letting one escape. Like, that's a very sentient being type of thing. So that's what I did, and was ready, you know what I'm saying? So I did like that too.
Yeah, they
Blerd
showed
Central.
that as like a monster. Like the way you see Krakoa nowadays, it's like, okay, it's a giant island, and you know what I'm saying, it may have a face when it's talking to, you know, Cypher, Doug Ramsey, you know, whatever. But this man was like a menace back in the day, and he was just like making monsters, doing shit. But like everybody said, like the fact that it's all stuff that, because when you think about it, it's actually crazy looking back at it. This fight is like a page and a half long. Like everything, all of this happens within the span of like 1.5 pages. So like it's really cool that all of that can be dropped in. It's like, okay, we have like, you know, mutated islands. We have the island sentient, you know, we have the motherfucker can also like make monsters that the X-Men can fight one-on-one. They sent this man into space, like, you know, just 5-6 of them. This is when people talk about it's like Avengers versus X-Men, there's no contest. X-Men are always the
They
most
pack
powerful
you up. They always pack you up.
every
Out of
single
here.
time. You know what I'm saying? 5 of them put a whole island into space. Like, you're not doing shit. And then so, you know, all of that, it's crazy how much exposition went into just like one fight. But then it's also crazy how like the fights aren't even the main parts of this story. You know, it's like, okay, it's like, oh, we're gonna go out, we're gonna fight. All right, X-Men assemble, do our shit. Yeah, all right, we whoop this nigga's ass, stomp, stomp, stomp. All right, let's get back to the house. All right, who's fucking who's doing what? You know what I'm saying? Like, was it? And I think that was, we got to remember, that was revolutionary for superhero comics. That's what made the X-Men the X-Men.
It's
You know what I'm
focusing on the
saying?
humanism part of it. That's why I think everyone loves X-Men,
Exactly.
because they're like, we're tired of these superhero god complex heroes that no one can relate to, you know what I'm saying? They're not, you know, or motivate to hear out. Let's deal with real people who are dealing with biologically, you know, differences that I think people in the world, I mean, it's current day, you know what I'm saying? So like, I liked how we like, yeah, let's fight, get them out of here, but let's deal with our interpersonal issue. Let's deal with the trauma of just dealing with that, of just kicking someone's ass. And what does that even mean on a grand scope of things? So that's why I do love it.
In
And this is
1974, like, it's crazy. It's
Right.
like, no, just stay one page on the fight. Let's go back to, yo, these 3 might have like a love triangle, like we're literally about to talk about right now. It's like, yo, this man's hitting on this other man's girlfriend, you know, like, what's up with that? And
No.
and that being the most interesting part of the comic.
Yeah.
And this is a PSA for everybody listening who, I'm going to do a lot of PSAs, I feel like. So this is a PSA for everybody listening who is a Avengers fanboy. Your fave is going to get bodied when the X-Men come into the MCU. I'm just letting you know that right now. Whoever your fave is going to be absolutely bodied, because the real heroes are coming into the MCU soon. All right.
Oh.
So just understand that. Just letting y'all know that right now. Whoever's your favorite, I don't care if it's Sam Wilson, I don't care if it's Rhodey, I don't care about none of that. The X-Men are coming and they will be bodying folks. All right.
Hands down.
That's just a PSA.
Hands down. All right. So now that we're done with Krakoa, we're home. So it's a mess. Everybody, it's a mess. I love it though. We got Xavier spying on people. We got Jean and Cyclops. Their relation not working out because Cyclops like, look, honey, I got leadership business to do. And she's like, damn nigga, I was just held up over here in Krakoa, you can't give me no attention. All right, then I'm going this walk. You know what I'm saying? And we got Cyclops. You know, then we got Colossus up here chilling. We got Nightcrawler playing pranks on people. Like, it's just a hot mess. Now let's get into Bobby, y'all. I think we can start there, where this is where kind of like the clashing begins. With Bobby coming in and really being like, who is y'all niggas? Even though I just fought with y'all 2 seconds ago, y'all niggas don't belong here. You know what I'm saying? And I think maybe Iceman was kind of going through his emotions. I think he saw Colossus was like, you kind of cute, but you know, you Russian, so I gotta call you these slurs.
Not him projecting.
You know what I'm saying? That's what I think, because it just didn't make any sense. You know what I'm saying? So I guess what we got thoughts on that conversation and just all of the mess that was going on. But yeah.
I feel like Bobby was fan service, to be honest with you, the way he was acting. I feel like they had to add somebody in there who was like, you know, I mean, he called him a Ruski. Like, you know, I feel like they had to add someone in there or add some kind of dialogue that was anti-Russian,
right,
for the times, just to like kind of make things a little bit more like contemporary, I guess, for 1970s. But still, it just didn't make any sense that you guys put your lives on the line for each other, and yet you're still being so abrasive to someone who's your comrade and also a fellow mutant, and also like a mutant like you who looks like a human but can change their form when they're using their powers. So I really just didn't understand, but also I attributed a lot of that to Bobby's age at the time. Like just being like real young, arrogant. I mean, we all were 18 before. Like we kind of understand. I mean, how old Bobby was, like what, 17, 18 at the time?
Yeah, and that's Bobby's character throughout. He's a very like brash, very like headstrong character that just like goes in. So like, yeah, I think the old X-Men, they're all in their teenagers, whereas these new X-Men, they're all like seasoned saints. They like in their 30s and up.
Yeah,
Right.
no, like everybody's young, and Bobby was the youngest out of all of them. Like there was Cyclops and then Beast, and then you have like Bobby. He was like, you know, like the kid brother of all of them. So it's like even if like the younger ones, if they're like 17, 18 at that point, then Bobby's still got to be like 15, 16. He's still the one that you got to like, you know, sneak the drink to.
Right, rope him in.
And honestly, this is where I you know, my fave does take an L. Is because it's like, yo, my guy Wolverine, this is kind of predatory. Please back up off of Marvel Girl right now. And Marvel Girl is just like, shorty, you just met this man like 5 minutes ago. How you already in confusion about your feelings about, I love Scott, but oh my God.
I'm not gonna lie.
I'm just like, oh.
The tension was real strong in this panel. Like, I was like, am I about to read a smut in a few seconds? Like,
are we getting into it?
Jane was like,
we have thoughts. I have thoughts.
I do like them bad boys.
But she was handling Wolverine. She was like, her face was like, boy, get away from here. Like, do you know who I am? I can read your mind. Like, she was just like, all right, I have to read your mind to know. But it was like real intense. And like, first of all, the way he popped out of nowhere, I was like, Wolverine, bro. Like, what is
I thought we were going to have like a baby boy situation going on.
Right? She was like, oh, so this is what a mature man can. Oh, I see what you got in store. It's like,
and the thing is,
like, oh God.
Scott wasn't giving her attention. You know, she's up here wallowing on the tree. You know, she was like, you know, is there better out there?
On the task at hand. he trying to help the team.
But it is very predatory with the age, yeah. But I did like how towards the end of this whole fight with the whole like with Angel. First of all, Angel, a sweetheart, and he up here scrubbing. He said he up here macking on the stone. Like, hold on, give me 1 second, and just like Dex Wolverine, like you ain't talking to my sis like that.
I didn't like that. I didn't like that actually. I thought Warren did the most. I thought he was drawing a bit. Like, yeah, my fault for the viewers who don't know what drawing is. That's Pennsylvania slang for like doing too much. But like, I thought he was just like I get it, you know what I mean? But they was just talking. Like, I mean, but also I guess he felt the vibes and he was just trying to like, you know,
definitely
be the Boy Scout, and was just like, you know, it was just like, let him. I don't know, like I'm a pro Logan guy, so even though I was like, let him cook, like let him get rejected on his own. Like, you ain't gonna stop it, like, so it was just.
I was just surprised how well this shit was written, because
Right.
people sit there and be like, oh yeah, Cyclops a cuck. Was Jean Grey slutty as shit for doing all of this shit. The way that when you go back and read this shit, it's like where Jean Grey was like in her life, and where like how all of this shit like, you know, it wasn't just like, oh, they just got together, they just started, you know, and she just started getting freaky with Wolverine. Like this, there was like levels to it, you know what I'm saying? Like it was built up from before the relaunch in the Stan Lee comics. She was the one that was always getting saved. Jean Grey was the useless one in the original X-Men, which is crazy. She was the one that's like, oh my God, Cyclops, help me, the damsel in distress. Chris Claremont came in and is like, nah, we gonna make her interesting. So we just sat there and was just like, you know what? She gonna quit the X-Men. She 18, which it just all makes sense too, because it's all real stuff. It's like she's 18, she's been with these people like her whole life. Like Professor X got that ass when it was like what, like 11, 12, like, you know, like just straight like, oh, she's a mutant, y'all better, you know, y'all better have her come over here with his creepy ass, you know, as we're gonna like go into again, like throughout this whole thing, everything going on, Professor X just sitting there just telepathically eavesdropping on everybody. That's something I'm gonna get to in a second. But Jean Grey, again, she was in the specific place that she was written in her life. It's like, oh, it makes sense. It's like, this is a chick that already wanted to be out. Cyclops was full in. This man's was out here writing 30-page combat reports, trying to sit there and just like get everybody.
We see where the Summers report started, and I love it.
She's over here. Bad joint redhead out here like, yo, let's take a walk out here. And this man's over here. It's like, nah, let me fill this out. 1974. I'm talking pencil to paper. You know what I'm saying? This man didn't have no typewriter. You know, they didn't draw that. This man pencil to paper. It's like, I gotta learn. Which I say it in a bad term, but it really speaks to Cyclops, because like that's why he's the leader. Right. That's why niggas look to him, and it's like he is that nigga that, yo, when he speaks, that's when we move. You know, because this man, like, he was like, just out of nowhere, just, all right, these people came in, I'm the leader, let me learn everything about these people, let me learn all their strengths, all their weaknesses. If you do this, let me make sure that somebody's behind you doing that. Ain't nobody getting caught out. When we say X-Men are a gang, you know what I'm saying, Cyclops is part of the reason why that is, you know what I'm saying, because he's like,
introduction to Summers Protocol is really early on in this.
That's what I'm saying. Summers Protocol, aka they get beat. You know what I'm saying? Niggas, we buddy system 2-3. You don't fight one-on-one. That's the Summers Protocol, aka we don't fight one-on-one. And that's where that shit came from. And so, but again, it was hell for his relationship. So yeah, when it came to Wolverine, it was sleazy, and he came in just straight, just like a slime ball with it. But it makes more sense why Jean Grey was sort of open to that, because she's 18, she's 18, 19, ready to go out, ready to do her own thing, and already contemplating, not regardless of even meeting Wolverine, already contemplating like whether she even wants to be in this relationship. So that's something people don't even think about.
Right, like just to piggyback off of that, like you guys already alluded to, like they grew up together, right? The fact that they're in a relationship is because they spent so much time together. She's trying to figure herself out. And I mean, like, yes, she's in a relationship and she was respectful, but I mean, realistically, we're adults. Like, she is allowed to find other people attractive. Like, you're still a human being. Those things don't just go away just because you're in a relationship. So I kind of just like how those scenes played out. I like how the dialogue played out. And it just speaks to Jean as a hero when you really look at it, because she sees Wolverine as someone that needs help, and is like, with her abilities, she kind of has the ability to maybe like help him put his thoughts together in so much time that he's lost. So I've always loved the dynamic between Wolverine and Jean. And with Scott, like, he has a lot of pressure on his shoulders. He's the leader of the X-Men. He is responsible. If one falls, it's his fault. Right? So it's just like, you kind of have to choose priorities, right? It's like, am I going to be the perfect boyfriend, or am I going to be a leader for this team of X-Men that is supposed to liberate their people and protect the world from dangers, right? So I felt like it's all written very mature, if I'm being honest. I love the dialogue and everything they put into it.
Facts.
I agree, and I love that really rain scene with Jean and Wolverine when after the fight, and he was like, "Look, see, look, I'm bad news. Like, like, don't talk to me." And she was like, "We're all hurting. Like, we're all here for a reason. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not gonna be afraid of you. Like, for what? My whole life people were afraid of me. You know what I'm saying? My whole life I struggled. So it was nice. It was nice seeing that Wolverine in that vulnerable state. I felt so bad. I was like, oh my god, Wolverine, up here, Maggie, and here you go showing your feelings. We love to see it. Um, so we can kind of, graze over this. All was like drama, but Bobby really came for Thunderbird too. I did want to kind of briefly talk about that. Like he was calling everyone but Storm just derogatory names. Like goodness, but like I was saying, it goes into his age. Like he's 15, so he whatever his daddy say, he gonna believe that. So
And I mean, he's reacting like an orphan that's afraid to be replaced, right? Like it's just like, oh, the new shiny toys, they already know how to use their powers. It's just like, oh, now we're out. Now we'll be out on the streets. Like, so he's just reacting poorly because of his age, because of his maturity level. Like again, he feels like he's gonna be thrown out from these people, so he wants them out. So the first time I read this, it pissed me off. Like, dude, like what the fuck? Like they just saved your lives. Like, what, really? But it's just like when you peel back the layers, it's just like he's lashing out. Again, he is just human. He's lashing out because he feels like he's being replaced.
That is a really good point, because like people think of the X-Men, it's like, okay, we have like modern X-Men, it's like we have hundreds of kids in this big ass mansion and it's a giant school. It wasn't that before. It was literally just them five. And it was like, okay, it's us, we're a family, we're a superhero team, and we're just doing what we want to do, you know what I'm saying? And all of a sudden they brought in like 6 other new people, you know what I'm saying? And again, they're like grown adults. All of these people are like 18 above, you know what I'm saying? Wolverine's like 200 something. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? So he's like 16. All of a sudden they bring in all these adults and stuff like that. And it's not a school at this point. It's not like, a thing where it's like all these people are bunking in. So that feeling of being replaced, that feeling of like, okay, well, we got better people on the team, you can find somewhere else to be, really had to be palpable at that point, because it wasn't until much later on that it became a school, an orphanage, a place for like people to come in, and there was a bunch of people running around this thing. So, it was just them five, and he's insecure, so of course he's gonna lash out like that.
Of course. So kind of going to issue 2, we're gonna kind of speed up issue 2 a little bit. So basically, everyone. So chapter 1, issue 2, chapter 1, the Doomsmith scenario. Basically, the mutants decide whether they want to stay or leave the X-Men. So the Nays, Sunfire said, "Don't call me no more. My phone is not available. I don't even like y'all to begin with. I am out. Deuces. We never see him again." And then obviously Iceman, Havoc, Polaris, and Marvel Girl all leave. But Storm, Wolverine, Banshee, Colossus, Nightcrawler, Thunderbird, Cyclops all stay. And this is where we get into the teamwork scenario and the danger room, where we start to see all of their abilities start to compress, and we see what their strong suits are. We get kind of a little bit segue into a lot of Nightcrawler lore, a lot of Nightcrawler ability, where he kind of explains his ability, because everyone's like, Nightcrawler, you can just buff away. He was like, no. I have principles to my abilities. So what we got thoughts on really not, we're kind of seeing the team work together and seeing their abilities get delving out more. And that's why I love the Deja Room, because it shows that in the movies, everything, it shows like what scenarios that are able to like versus like you can debate, but like here it is in real time what it looks like.
I thought it was pretty cool. I love, like I said before, like when they were fighting Krakoa, like I thought it was really cool seeing them work together and have their powers. I thought it was really interesting to see the dynamics in there, and I love how Scott brought that up later. Is like seeing how Proudstar just kept trying to one up Wolverine, and like I was like, 2 things. Like you kept seeing Wolverine kept trying niggas, but then you also kept seeing how Proudstar really kept trying niggas, and like the arrogance that went with him. Because again, it's that I have to, like, you brought me into this fold. I have to keep proving myself and keep. And again, I think that just goes towards like the ignorance when they're writing him. But I thought that was really cool. Like everyone else, I paid attention to. I thought it was really cool how Proudstar overestimated his abilities, and Scott had to check him and let him know if it's like, all right, like if this laser beam was stronger, then when then just the training, you would have lost your leg. So you got to chill out, bro. Like you got to understand, like we're training here for a reason so that we can actually develop our abilities and actually be more effective in a fight. And I don't think Proudstar was really getting that. But I feel like there are other things that people were trying to understand how to use their abilities. But I also appreciate how the Danger Room is upgraded in this, series. And it's like, all right, you're actually facing real threats. You're not just having boomerangs and balls being thrown at you, right? Like you're actually getting hit with a press machine. There's actually indentions being made in the wall by Colossus. I thought that was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that too. And it was so cute how you kind of see it all flowing and coming. Like if you're aware of these characters, you kind of see, oh, Colossus is good. But I love how Wolverine was like, you okay, buddy? Like, because I don't think he really knew, so he's like, yeah. He was like, yeah, I'm good, I'm straight, you know what I'm saying? So I love that too. JB.
Yeah, I love Danger Room sequences. I thought this was a really cool one. This is yet another example of watching Cyclops be a leader and a mentor. So I love doing that, watching that. Proudstar, again, he's someone that's just constantly trying to prove himself and prove that he's worthy, and stuff like that does have drawbacks. You can get people killed when you're in the field trying to showboat, trying to be the one in front. Like that's not what being on a team is about. And later on we'll find out the Proudstar is, battling with all of these different things. So I like that exploration. Watching Banshee and Storm use their powers together, that was really cool. And like you were alluding to, Spicy, just learning more about the mechanics of Nightcrawler's powers, like I mentioned in issue 1, where we learned about Cyclops' optic beams not being able to affect his body. We learn about and we'll learn more about this later on, but like if he's like teleporting, he's teleporting at the exact same velocity as he started with, so he has to be aware of that. He can't teleport to somewhere that he hasn't been before without knowing exactly where he's going. And these things are important not just for the audience, but it's good for the rest of the team to know, okay, these are his limitations, these are his strengths. And then when we get to Banshee and Nightcrawler later on, where he uses his sonic waves to like give exact coordinates for Nightcrawler to jump, brilliant sequences. So I love the way this is written.
Yeah, I come to appreciate Cyclops a bit more because again, he is this young guy, and he's got this is, if we want to compare it to sports, this is like the rookie coach coming in and taking over a vet team. Like you have the veteran players already. We're going to this basketball season. Happy opening week. By the time you hear this, I don't know, it's NBA season regardless, whatever. Anyway, but this is like, yo, this is Tazula coming in and like, yo, this is Boston Celtics. These guys have been through it for like 10 years now. I'm super new to them, but I have to deal with egos. I have to deal with different personalities. He is learning on the fly, and it's so impressive of Cyclops. And it comes to characterize who he is that stays consistent. He is a leader to a fault. You know what I mean? Blerd Central mentioned it. They sometimes hold Scott by having him make stupid decisions, but he is always looking out for the team. He is always about, I want the team to survive. I want us to accomplish our goals, but I am not willing to sacrifice. Well, at certain times, I'm not willing to sacrifice my fellow beings. So everything is like, yo, we have to survive. We need to work together. This is how we coordinate. He's a strategist, and I respect that so much. And the Danger Room allows us to see that. Proudstar, I mean, he's living up to his name. Proud ass motherfucker, that's for sure. Proud ass motherfucker. So I can't hate on him for that, but it's just his own struggles, like you mentioned. He wants to fit in because of, again, how indigenous people are portrayed as. They're isolated. They have reservations, they stay isolated to themselves. And here he is, he's made an attempt. It was rebuffed by Iceman. So he's just kind of how like a kid throws a tantrum when they want attention. He's now going to be more risky. Like, oh, Wolverine can be so risky with it. Yeah, Wolverine also has one of the best healing factors in all of Marvel.
Exactly.
So
lived longer than you. Lived
Yeah.
way more experience.
And you don't know this yet, Proudstar, but Marvel really loves Wolverine. So even if he dies, he's coming back. I don't know about you, sir. So please relax, and back off. Like you're doing too much. But yeah, the Danger Room is just presents so fun opportunities because it's a chance of learning for not only Cyclops but for everybody else. You're seeing into their mentality. How do they approach combat? How do they approach interacting with other new factors in combat? Like you mentioned, JB, later on we see that Banshee and Nightcrawler combination. Like, yo, that is so dope. That is also, something you kind of expect in more modern times. That's a combo I expected more modern times. That's very intelligent of them back in the day. Like, oh, like that's a pairing that is great for recon. That is your scout team for sure. They are going to kill it. So it was just super fun, super fun.
Blerd Central?
I loved it. I think same thing what Abe was saying, like jumping off that. I think the real star of it was Cyclops. Everything like what I was just saying before, like this man was studying everybody. This man was studying all their powers. Like he had met them 2 days ago. He had only met them 2 days ago. Like, let's be completely honest. Like, he had came in just fucking wrecked. My man's was beat up, came in, saved his people, and then got straight to work to learning everybody's powers. That's 6 new people that just walked up in here and was like, all right, let me figure out his power. Let me figure out, okay, what can you do? What can you do? Who's the best combination for this and that? And then it showed in just a short time. That's how dedicated Cyclops is. There's a panel in I can't remember which one it was, but I think it was like one of the newer comics where Cyclops comes in and it shows his new ability to like dark side, like, pin his optic blast everywhere. And it's I think it's Iceman talking about him. He's like, there's that guy that you call that just gets shit done, and that's him. And it shows you like this is the groundwork for that, because that man put in work for that. That man put in hours in the lab for just to know, what can I do? How can I push this further? What can you do? All right, this formation A, B, and C. There's another panel where he's like, oh, you're gonna go. Somebody tells him like, oh, you're gonna go to plan B. He's like, no, that implies we only have 26. This man is a master strategist, to the point that Captain America, the greatest strategist in all of Marvel, was afraid of this man. Was like, yo, if I'm gonna get into war with this man, it's gonna be a problem. We're gonna have to really make sure that we on our shit. So like Cyclops knowing that, this just shows that's why he's that man. That's why he's the leader. You know what I'm saying?
I have to ask,
all of that.
I have to ask, and I ask this because JB's here, and Bearded, I understand your love of Cyclops, and I'm a fan of it.
Oh.
So who wins this matchup? Batman with prep time or Cyclops with prep time?
Because we're not doing that.
The answer is always Batman with prep time. There is no other response.
Because Cyclops is that guy, it's just like,
oh my gosh.
He ain't no slouch. He does his work. So and he has abilities. He has mutant abilities. So yeah, I just have to, because any anti-Batman slander is not frowned upon, is what I'll say.
I can't. You just trying to cause drama already. Oh my gosh, I can't. I only say his only thing with Scott is like he's very emotionally driven. So if anything were to happen to like Jean, he might just drop the whole plan and be like, and then it's like, all right, Scott, get together. But if Jean wasn't involved in anything like that, then I don't know. I guess Batman. Anyway, all right, so we're gonna go to chapter 2. Chapter 2, because we're running by. Death O'Hare Valhalla High. Basically, Count Nefaria takes over a military base. There's always a military base being taken over by some villain. That's just comic book 101. And we have variant underlings that look exactly like our new X-Men. I don't even know what they called them. So I guess this is where we kind of lead up into, let me see. Okay, so that's the call. Basically, this is where we get the call where Beast comes in and it's like, we need the X-Men. They try to call the Avengers, but they busy right now, so we need y'all. And where Beast is like, who is this? Everyone's like, who? This ain't the X-Men. Who's these new people coming in? Like, who are these people? So I guess and this is where we kind of like see where I kind of want to speed it up to where the because there's a lot of action going on, a lot of just comic book lore stuff. So if you guys want, we can talk about it, but I kind of would like to skip over it because it's kind of where things kind of like drag on a little bit. Basically their plane gets shot down, and I really want to get into issue 3, which is where the X-Men almost die. So if y'all don't mind, we kind of skip over that. But I guess before, what were y'all thoughts on Count Nefarious and the freaking animal like variant clones of the X-Men?
I'll say super quick, like, I think his biggest downfall was just his arrogance. It's just like, dude, the X-Men and the Avengers, and you think you're going to be okay just because of the basic defenses. You think you can take on the X-Men and the Avengers at the same time. I think he's an idiot. He was just overly arrogant, and he lost because of his arrogance. Like, I think he was an absolute waste in this story, honestly. Like, he was just an idiot.
Yeah, I just think this was, let's get into some action. This was a, let's show the team, let's show the efforts of all their hard work and whatnot. So let's give you a quick dude who, like JB said, was super arrogant, and he got packed up expeditiously. So yeah, no, it was cool, fun just to see some action, but there, it made me realize, like, oh, I am kind of missing the exposition, because this is a chance for me to really learn about these characters. And as fun as action is, I want to start reading more. I want to have the normal conversations again. I want to get into philosophical debates between my players. I want to see what happens there. This is cool. Bam, bam, pow. Fuck them up. Let's keep it moving, then.
This is very much a I got the codes, I could do anything,
Right.
and it's just like, calm down. No, literally.
Yeah, like, we shouldn't really be expecting somebody from like a name like Count Nefaria. Like, you know what I'm saying?
You're too late, mutants. Like, I was like,
you
you
muties.
It goes
even
like
his people were just like, Jesus Christ, like.
It really goes to like the point that I was saying, like, yo, this is what really made Chris Claremont's X-Men like the shit, is that like the action and all of that was like secondary. You were like, okay, like, yo, wham bam pow, let's get to that. All right, let's get back to the mansion. Who is that? Like, what's going on between these people? Like, well, who's making friends with who and stuff like that, which is like, it goes into like the more interesting story, I think, which is like Attack On in issue, I think this issue 2 or 3, issue 3, right? So I think like at the end it was, and it's actually like one of the first X-Men stories, with the new age X-Men stories with the new characters in it that Stan Lee wrote personally, and this wasn't in the comics before, but this is why I'm like, yo, we got to read X-Men Classic, because it's sort of like a director's cut of like all of these X-Men stories that were like left on the cutting room floor before, but they just kind of like added in because it's just like, why not? But it's just like the story with like Jean Grey and Storm.
Yes. I was going to bring those side stories up kind of the end, but we can talk about it. I loved that side story. Like, it was just so, and it makes sense. Like, the only 2 women in the group, of course, like, come on, I want to see that. But it was just like touching bases on Storm's claustrophobia, touching base on her backstory just in general that we all kind of know, and seeing her and Jean figure each other out, 2 very strong omega mutants, but just seeing like, just seeing that happen in real time, it was so well written. I really appreciated it for the time it came out with, especially with them kind of like exploring more of Storm in general and doing it fairly well, in my opinion. I was like, oh yes, like, this is what I want to see more of.
Yeah, they did a really good job of grounding those characters, just with like Jean talking about the fact that it's not me trying to read minds, it's trying not to read them is my thing. And then like seeing Storm, essentially a goddess, dealing with claustrophobia, the fact that she was buried alive when she was a kid, and dealing with that trauma, and it just rushing back when she saw that kid run into the subway. So it's a great way to just continue to humanize these characters, even though we can see them as so fantastical.
Let's get into War Hunt. Now, I think this beginning panel was hilarious to me because you got about 4 or 5 niggas who can fly and everybody falling. Why is Storm falling? It don't make no sense. Why is Storm and Banshee falling? Like, y'all should it shouldn't take Scott to be like, okay, Storm, I need you to fly and grab them. Like, I found that kind of hilarious, but it kind of circling back to Cyclops as a leader, and I guess the whole like it catching everybody off guardness and how Scott is very much on his feet, whatever. But we got thoughts, and I guess like the way that everyone used their abilities. I this is really the panel I enjoyed the most, where it was like Cyclops was like, okay, Storm, I can only carry 2 people. And then Banshee was like, all right, I got 1 person. And then Colossus is like, I'm good. I could just land by myself. Like, and then Cyclops having to trust his new teammates to come and get him last. So I guess like whoever wants to go for that, I guess JB want to go first with that and then kind of go off.
Yeah, I love this. Again, this was another great example of the teamwork. It shows Cyclops' leadership, that even though they just came in, they're in this like literal like death situation, and they're willing to listen to him and trust his word. And they're falling because I think like it's cool to see them like talking, because if the rest of them are flying and the others are falling, there's no way for them to communicate the next plan. So I thought that was cool as well. And then once they all figured it out, like I mentioned before, watching Banshee like talk about the fact that, well, I've never used my powers like this before, but it doesn't mean that it's not possible. And then he just gives it literally everything he has, gives Nightcrawler the exact coordinates, and that is a testament to Cyclops' leadership. It shows that he was able to put these people together, and in this death-defying situation, they're able to come together and put that training to good use. And then you have Proudstar again that's trying to prove himself, and Cyclops is like, yes, you would be great for this job, but you have to understand that Wolverine used to be on this base when he was in the Canadian military. Not only does he have superior senses, he's been here before. He knows the layout. It would take less time. He can heal. He's invulnerable because of his adamantium skeleton. He is the right person for this job. And this is the problem with Proudstar, where it's like, I want to believe in him because he just wants to do what's right. But it's like in the field as a team, you're fucking up, bro. Like, this is where you're gonna get people killed. Like, the best person for the job should go. So again, just to wrap it up, watching Cyclops pretty much just like have to take care of this team in the field, it was great to see.
Singing the gospels of my nigga Scott Summers. Thank you. Like, again, it's what I've been saying this whole time. It's just like Scott's leadership. That's why he was the one. He, like Spicy said, he was the last one to, have any type of plan to be saved. And he has the powers of like arguably the power set that like least is able to help him survive a giant fall like that. You think about everybody else, they got some type of flying ability. Nightcrawler poofs away. I said Icecrawler. Iceman can, like make a mount or whatever. Cyclops is like, okay, let me shoot the ground. Maybe like that man's still going pow and done. He didn't have no healing factor and stuff like that, but he still trusted not just his teammates, but his own plans to be like, this is how everything gets done. This man is the Izuku Midoriya of Marvel Comics. I swear to God, like he is the Deku. He is just like, get it, do that, bow. Yo, we got it. And that's why everybody trusts him so much. It's not because he's Cyclops and he's like Professor X's favorite. It's because they've been in situations just like this where it's like, okay, we listen to Cyclops and we're still alive. So I'm gonna listen to this man. I'm gonna keep listening to him. That's why he's leader.
I do want to say is I love how Scott can always balance a good existential crisis in between all of that, because he was like, this is where I die. You know what? I had a good run. And then here comes Banshee, was like, oh, you think I was gonna get you, did you? He was like, you know what? I did it. It crossed my mind. So it was nice to see that realism of that situation, because anyone in a situation would be going through that same thing, you know what I'm saying? So I did enjoy that. Okay, now Peter Blerd. Sorry.
No, I really thought that was cool. Like already said what anything I would have said. You know, I thought it was interesting. I enjoy the homogeny of their powers, and I enjoyed. That was a nice little Deku reference. He really is that guy who like has all the pieces on the chessboard and knows exactly where they need to go, when they need to go, where they need to go, when they need to be there. I think it was just really interesting watching. I did think one thing I did think was weird though was like, why didn't this Wolverine just fall? Like, you know, just like why he just hit the ground, like, because he can do that. And the only reason I feel that's weird is because in the previous chapter, you had Proud Star trying to jump off a cliff, and Storm being like, well,
right,
he can heal. So I did think that was a little inconsistent with that part just there, just because it's just like, all right, well, Wolverine can just hit the ground like Colossus can hit the ground. But besides that, I thought that was a nice little part of the chapter. Again, just showing like, you know, Cyclops is the leader, and he is the person who actually has the strategies, and as Blerd Central was saying, that like this showing, you know, people who are starting with Hickman's run, like where the Summers Protocol started and how Scott had and why and how Scott has a plan for everything because he's been through this shit. He knows how to take out a kaiju because he made a plan for it.
Yeah, honestly, it's crazy because I've never hated Scott. You know, I'm not like anti-Scott or anyway, but it's hard to not respect this man and just be impressed by him. And Blerd Central, I see why you're a stan. I see where you're coming from because the way he's handling all again, he's young. He's the youngest of he's the next youngest of them. You know, he's dealing with all these old heads. Actually, he's the youngest of the old heads, yeah, because Iceman is not here now. They all went separate ways, right? But he is like they could have easily treated him like, yo, you a kid, like get out my face. I especially Wolverine, which you know Wolverine kind of does because Wolverine has 200 years up on the nigga, right? But it's just so impressive how Scott is able to deal with all of these new situations, new variables on the fly, and doing it in a way that is not overpowering too, because it could easily be like, oh yeah, bam, 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 oh he's a genius. He's actually thinking this out. You know, he allows for a little bit of doubt to come into his mind and second guessing and whatnot. And then he just says, you know, I gotta make my decision. This is what it is. And it may fail. And if that's it, well, that's it. But it makes it relieving because it's still relatable. You know, it's still relatable and you can be so impressed with him. So this chapter here, chapter 3, issue 3 was really just a, yo, we're gonna show you how badass and how dope of a character Cyclops is, because I don't think y'all understand what we're going to do for the future of this character. Again, they do hoe him sometimes and make him make some dumb decisions, but his track record is overwhelmingly positive.
right.
You don't have the X-Men without Cyclops. None of this shit would ever work if Cyclops is not who he is. You know, certain characters you can probably make a case for like, oh, if they're replaced, blah blah blah. You know, it could work. You can swap them out with other heroes. But Cyclops, nah. There's no one replacing Cyclops ever. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So that's what I was most impressed with for sure.
I know, and it kind of makes sense because when you're dealing with mutant abilities that are biological, and it's like you don't know what to expect. You know, superpowers is like, yeah, you know, of course you can, but with something that's like naturally happening, you know, you got to look at the limits. You got to look at what they can do. You can't push this too much here. Or like Banshee, who's old as hell, the oldest nigga on the team, you know, who's like, you know what, I feel myself deteriorating, but I'm gonna keep pushing myself, and if I pass out, I pass out. But yeah, but I do want to say is this issue is my favorite. I love the fight sequences throughout all of this. Like it was so action packed. All of the team ups made sense, you know, but then they switched it up where it was like you would think like, okay, here goes this Annie-Man who looks like this X-Men, but then you see them switch up where it's like, oh, this X-Men comes in, adds something new to it, like with Nightcrawler helping out Wolverine, which again, Nightcrawler took that Annie-Man out. I was like, dang, like he went on my head. So I loved it. It flowed well. It made sense. It reminded me of the 90s cartoons where it's like all of that crowd was just action-packed chaos, but it was all like flowy and it made sense with the team ups and how the abilities are being used and how they switched it up. So what were you guys' thoughts on that?
I loved it. I thought it was just like we were saying, like the X-Men are the team that, they come in as a team, they're a unit. Like I don't know how many of y'all watch pro wrestling. I might pepper in some pro wrestling some stuff in here every now and again. If y'all know me, y'all know me. But it's like, when y'all have that seasoned tag team, like they've been working together for years, versus like the two people that just like, we're just teaming up just to do, just this, or even just like a bunch of henchmen that are like, we're somewhat organized, but we're just, we're under this guy. We're taking orders. The X-Men, they come in, they're like, yo, okay, you go down, then I got this man coming in behind you. We gonna take you out, reverse everything. It's like a RPG. It's like Scott is playing like Final Fantasy out here. It's like, all right, move you to the front line, take you out the back, hit you with this combo, team up with this Iceman and Storm, make a big old tornado and stuff like that. Like, this is where that all started. This is where like it all, like, basically the foundation for all of that, because that's one thing the X-Men do. Like, if they'll fight behind the scenes, they'll be, arguing and shit like that. But when they come together and when they come and it's for real, like they fighting, it's like, all right, we got each other's back and we know exactly what each other can do. It's like, yeah, it could be any random team of X-Men. It's like, all right, we got Iceman, we got it. All right, bet we know exactly what to do because we already got our team formation straight. And that's why the X-Men are different than any other team, even the Avengers, Justice League, any other team like that, because they know each other like on a family level, and that's what was really shown like right here. It's like with Scott and everything. It's like, yo, this is a family, basically. Yeah.
All right, so to kind of speed through a little bit, I really want to get into Morning before we kind of like really get into the last issue, because this definitely was my favorite story, both like written and artist wise. Like this, the artwork, I was so in love with the artwork in Morning. But basically kind of end up the issue up, Proud Star is he sacrificed himself to help stop Count Nefarious, his little escape pod, and it really shook the team up, especially Banshee and Cyclops, who were kind of like really much like
and
part
Wolverine too.
And Wolverine, where like they were really much kind of part of it happening. So kind of in Morning, I kind of want to ask you guys, like, what were you guys' thoughts on all of that? Because it hit the team hard. Like Cyclops was really contemplating life. And I loved that aspect of X-Men where we get these deep bonds because we spend so much time with each other and all is at home at the school. And then when they go into the field, it's like this is real deeply bond. So like, what were you guys' thoughts on the Morning issue to kind of like, speed run through this?
Yeah, Morning was my favorite thing out of this entire read. It was just tragic to see Thunderbird grow out that way. Like, again, just trying to prove himself that he can do everything, and he wouldn't listen to Banshee, he wouldn't listen to Professor X, and unfortunately it cost him his life. And we get to this point with Xavier where he's like, I knew that it was ignorant of me to not think of this day coming sooner. It was ignorant of me to think that we could just go through this completely unscathed. So I love that, again, just showing the human elements of Xavier. It's like he put this team together, he put everything into it, but it's just like, yeah, it's going to come with casualties. You're doing a lot of great good, but you're going to be putting these people in danger. And he barely even knew Thunderbird, and he came onto his team and he died, right? And you have Cyclops that bears that weight. You have Banshee, who feels like, maybe if I did more, maybe if I flew to him and like just like pulled him off of the ship, like what could I have done? Survivor's guilt. Like there's so much that goes into this. Wolverine, feeling sad for Thunderbird because he also respected him in his own way, right? Which is why he goes off on his own and he's tracking for the body, once we hear that it got stolen, right? And we get all of these great scenes with Wolverine just kind of like reminiscing on his time with Thunderbird and just acknowledging the great person that he was. And great writing in this. I absolutely loved Morning. I could talk about it forever. This was awesome.
Every single thing that JB said like exactly is the reason why this is like the best issue out of like all the issues we're covering in this first episode, because it really is. It's the culmination. It's like the Avengers Endgame of like this 4-issue arc. It's like everything that was set up was really paid off for. It's like Proud Star being proud in the danger room and stuff like that, that manifested in this fight. You know what I'm saying? Cyclops being as resourceful as he is, being the leader and having such an emotional connection with the team, and not just being like a general of an army or something like that, just being like, no, I'm like the head of this family, and him taking that loss the way that he did. Wolverine, it's so easy. I want to talk about Wolverine real quick. It's just like Wolverine, it's so easy to, you know, have that gruff exterior, and, you know, like again, there were millions of copycats for Wolverine, and they always did this, but where they never actually showed that deep side of him. And you got that from the jump, like with the stuff with Jean Grey, and then again with this stuff here. Again, they planted a seed with the stuff with Jean Grey, and then they like capitalized on it in this issue, where it's like, yeah, he's a dickhead, but you know what I'm saying, he's not completely a villain, you know what I mean? Like he actually cares about these people that he's going in the fight with, that he's like risking his life for, and that's what gives him that overall 3-dimensional character that everybody loves about Wolverine. And you know, even when they come back, which is like something we didn't really talk to, and Professor X has to like just console all of these, you know, just defeated team,
and him experiencing what he had experienced mentally, like being there
literally
first time and feeling all of that, like it was like, whoa, like that was a lot. So
exactly. We talk about Cyclops being the leader and like really like holding that weight, which he does and stuff like that. But the other part of telepathy that we don't talk about is like the empathy of it all. Like he felt that stuff. Like he didn't just see Banshee and I'm sorry, Banshee, but what's his name getting killed? I'm sorry. Proud Star getting killed. Oh, so many names. But it's like Proud Star getting killed. Like he literally felt that. He was like, yo, like I felt like I just died. And then I felt everybody's shock and sorrow and guilt and just general everything that they were feeling, seeing that happen. You know, that is trauma. That is the definition of PTSD. You know what I'm saying? And then he has to rebuild himself and just be like, be the rock that all of these other people have to then lean on when they come back into the mansion. Just be like, you know, this is what happens. This is what we are. And the reason why you feel the way you feel, again, it's because y'all are a family. Y'all aren't just like some superhero team out there. Y'all aren't like the Avengers, which is like, y'all are basically, the Avengers are co-workers. These people live together.
Exactly. And I love how in Morning where it's exactly that. Everyone's going their own grieving process. Wolverine is going out to find the truth because he already knows, but he finds out even more about Proud Star, the way he is, because he's a military man as well, just like Wolverine. So I really did love that moment. And even with just like Banshee using his ability that he doesn't need to, but still using it because he wants to prove to himself that he can, to make up for like, you know, it being his fault, him feeling like that. And then like everyone else, like Nightcrawler and Cyclops, reminiscing about their time with Proud Star. And I really enjoyed his moment with Storm the most, because he's just like, you and I, we kind of two sides of the same coin, you know what I'm saying? You know, just seeing that juxtapose, and just everyone really grieving this man, how much that he really was part of their lives. It was cute. It was a cute moment where Nightcrawler and Cyclops were kind of like having little cute moments, and Storm was like, here's some water, because they're like, it's hot. Nightcrawler's, I'm the wrong color for this. It's too hot out here. I love that. But real moments of grieving, you don't know what takes place in a grieving process. You know what I'm saying? It's family, especially with family. You know, my family, they fight at funerals, unfortunately. That's just how they grieve. But I love this moment. It was so realistic. And I really love the art style of it. It really made it, each emotional part that more emotional. But yeah, Peter Blerd, sorry.
Yeah, I definitely loved, I think I like, you know, even those kind of like fucked up, sadistic or something low-key. I actually like when X-Men die. because the morning that comes after really brings the team together and makes them reevaluate how they look at their fellow team members and their family, right? And one part that sticks out to me the most is Nightcrawler's flashback. When he was talking to Prowlstar about where he fits on the team and why he's still there, and him really trying to realize that, like, I don't know why I'm here, you know, and I'm probably here because honestly, I have nowhere else to go. You know, this is the only place I can go to. And I also liked when he was speaking, I think this is the part, yeah, him, the signs were there that Prowlstar was going to do something reckless. And Nightcrawler wanting to see, like, hey, like this, but Nightcrawler like feeling bad about not picking up on it sooner and not being there and being maybe there more to actually help Prowlstar assimilate more to the team than he already was. And I think those parts, like, and those are the parts I like about morning chapters within the X-Men, is just like people realizing, like, trying to take, even though like it's not your fault when someone dies or something happens, right? But figuring out, like, okay, here's what I could do better in the future, and I should have saw these signs, and like this person said it in a joking manner, but they were really serious. Like they were really, like, in a sense being self-destructive and not really realizing their own self-destruction. So just having that introspection, those parts of morning chapters are just always just one of my favorite parts of it, because it makes the team more human. And like Blerd Central was saying, like, this isn't like the Avengers. This isn't like other groups like Justice League. This is a family, and they're a family on their own. Like, there's no one else like them on the planet aside from other mutants. But right now, they're the only people who are openly being themselves. So I really appreciate it, Morning.
Yes, definitely probably going to be my top favorite issue, definitely. All right, so our final issue, last issue, Night of the Demon. This one is kind of a lead up into a crazy new character, but also too, we get more of Cyclops. We get more of kind of the conclusion of Cyclops's grief from the first issue till now, which I fully enjoyed. I really enjoyed him kind of letting loose and feeling that feeling. Cause I feel like him as a leader, he keeps everything in, whatever, but like it's nice to see him let loose, but also understand like the dangers of his mutability. Like he has to keep composure, if not people will die, you know what I'm saying? So see him let loose and him immediately pick himself back up again and was like, you know, can't be wild and I really have to focus. It was nice to see, really. Like it was honestly nice to see that side of Cyclops, because he went through a lot, you know what I'm saying? So what were you guys' thoughts on that?
I thought it was just like really just three-dimensional, you know, and this is the
Right.
thing that like we were talking about, like why we're making a whole podcast about the X-Men, because this shit is revolutionary. Like this shit is, nobody was doing it like Chris Claremont was doing it before. And you know, it's like that's why people have like these real deep connections with these characters. Like me with Cyclops, like this is Cyclops's issue, and I'm like, this is exactly everything that I love about Cyclops. Again, it's like, because you know, even with characters like Captain America, I love to stress that, you know, the leader of the Avengers, strategist, all that stuff like that, to a point, he looks at some people expendable. You know what I'm saying? Like you see that in the Civil War story, where it's like, you know, he doesn't mind if some people, you know, kind of get fucked up doing what they're doing. You know, if the Punisher crosses him, he doesn't mind beating his ass and something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like putting him in the hospital. Cyclops is not like that. Like he'll fight Wolverine. He'll put Wolverine in the hospital like real quick, but that's a different story. But just in the context of all of this, he feels for everything that's going on. And just like to jump off everything like Blerded Beard was saying, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Yeah, everything that he was saying is like, that's sort of like the point of like, it's not just death in comic books happens all the time, but when it becomes really meaningful is when you see the people around that character really like mourn, and their characters can really grow out of that. And that was this instance for Cyclops. He, again, we were talking about it all through the podcast. He was a kid, you know, throughout this whole superhero team. It's basically like, oh, we're doing superhero stuff, we're fighting Magneto. Really, Magneto never wanted to kill them. because they're mutants at the same time. So, you know what I'm saying? They're doing kid shit. You know, it gets to this point, he turns 18, people are leaving the X-Men, people are coming in and out, you know, people are fighting within the team, and now somebody died on his watch. He was there. Like, that's something that I don't think that we take into account as a leader. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's a special type of guilt there, because it's like you're the reason that person was in that specific spot at that specific moment. And even though, you know, that might not be entirely true, that's how Cyclops looks at it, you know?
Yeah, because he wasn't one to make a decision where he's like, oh, Banshee and Prowlstar got knocked out. He's like, we got time, leave them and we'll come back. And so
Exactly.
Yeah.
They need this type shit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's militaristic, but it's like that's the point. Like that's going into like what we're definitely going to be having long conversations about, like when he starts riffing with Professor X, is like, that's, you see the beginnings of it, is because like Professor X kind of looked at these, even though he is empathetic and all of that, he kind of treated these kids like they were like a military. That's why you see these older people. It's like, it wasn't a school when real shit needed to get done. He was like, okay, y'all, they got kidnapped. Let's bring in Wolverine. Let's bring in Storm. These are grown people. You know, this ain't a school no more. This is a team. And that's how Professor X looks at it. And you can see it going through his entire, you know, history. But Cyclops, he's part of that team. He's part of these people. So seeing him go through all of that strife, seeing him having to like really deal with the consequences of like, okay, I treated these people like they were just like pawns on a chessboard, and then they died. Like, this is a pivotal moment going forward that I'm probably going to reference in a whole bunch of episodes later on, that like, that he saw this, and this is when he was like, nah, these aren't people. This is where he for real became like groomed to be a like general, to being like a true like revolutionary. It's like, no, I'm doing this for my people, not just for my team, you know, not just to get this mission done.
Yeah, I love Cyclops in this moment. Like, as a leader, you have to be very stern, and it was great to like just see him like get a moment to mourn, even though it, you know, turned into something else, like when he, you know, destroyed the ancient Kern and everything. But it was good to see him, because again, like, he has to be stern in front of the whole team. If your leader shows weakness, then that trickles down to everything else. So it's like he has to remain solid at all times, and he just couldn't take it anymore. He feels responsible. An order that he gave ended up, you know, losing the life of a team member, which is something that I can only imagine how he feels, and he's not able to shake it. It doesn't matter if he gave another order, like Proudstar still made his decision, but it doesn't matter. He still feels responsible because he is the leader of that team. So I keep saying it, but I just love human moments within the fantastical, and this was definitely a display of that.
I mean, I said it all, man. I don't want to be redundant. You know, the best thing I can say, you know, just to piggyback off of y'all, is the heaviest they have, it wears a crown. And when you're a leader, whether you make a good decision or a bad decision, it's going to weigh on you. Even if it was a good decision, it turned out poorly, it's going to weigh on you. And you know, when you're a child soldier, and you've been a child soldier, and now you're like coming into adulthood, like these decisions aren't ever going to be easy. And I appreciate how the chapter, you know, showed him trying to work through his grief in his own little way. But then I also appreciate, and I'm pretty sure we're going to go into this next, is, you know, how the chapter also shows the consequences of acting out blindly.
Right. And let's kind of segue into that. Like JB said, how Cyclops destroyed the turret. I saw it glowing, but I didn't see it in the previous panel. So I'm like, what is that? But I didn't dawn on me that he had destroyed it. So to kind of have him have that revelation near that, and to see this demon pop up and toss him into the school, I love that kind of like that flowiness, because I think it was Banshee was like, is Cyclops out there wilding? Why I see him fight? What is he fighting? And then Woman was like, he just going through it. And then we see him get tossed through the window. I was crying. I was like, that is a perfect segue into like what we just got with Cyclops. So I loved that. And I love the team working together. I love that I loved how kind of speeding up how it was Storm there to save the day, really. And I loved it. I loved how she got that moment where it tried to suck her, try to get her, and she was like, I am she. I do this. And how it tried to take her back in her memories to see it, like all that, her gaining again her claustrophobia and all of that, and she's like, I will not let this break me, like I am free, like I'm not doing this. So I enjoyed this chapter where we get a new like villain, but we also get a more growth with the X-Men, especially the newer ones, not just Cyclops. So what were you guys' thoughts on that kind of like crazy fiasco?
Yeah, it was great to see Storm be vulnerable. It was great to see like her facing up against like these powerful demons, and then like you were saying, the flashback to seeing her parents and like having to be like, no, I'm not gonna let you like manipulate me into this. Like I have a job that needs to be done. There's people that need to be saved. I'm beyond this. And she handled business. An incredibly powerful lightning bolt just destroying the creature. So I love this.
I liked about this chapter is that it sets up Storm so well as far as her character development goes and how she handles high stress situations, and kind of shows that, like, Storm and many other X-Men characters are not just their past. Like there's a lot more to them than what they have gone through, and they all have gone through these certain traumas. But this demon who I really didn't care for the demon, to be honest with you. But this demon, and this is not the only time, someone tries to invade the mind of Storm and try to use her past against her to weaken her. But but each time she just builds and builds upon who she is as an X-Men and who she is as a mutant. And now we see who she is now. And I feel like this is like the first step to seeing who she becomes later on down the line.
I love that. Like we always talk about like the characters. Like we already talked about like the character of Storm so much, but just like from a publishing standpoint, again, like this was, I think we like got to remind ourselves, this is 1974.
First black character.
First black and a black woman to be,
Yeah.
to at that, it was just like to be a woman, to be black, and just have this much agency in this, not just agency, but like to be a commanding force in these comics was just it's so revolutionary, it's so refreshing and stuff like that. And like everybody said, it's great to also have that vulnerability to make this person a three-dimensional character. It's like, she has the claustrophobia that makes her all the more realer, and just going into her past, which from a publishing standpoint, again, we didn't get anything about any of these people's origins, so it was also masterfully done. Like if you put yourself in the mind of, okay, I don't know anything about these characters, and you're just seeing like, oh wow, these characters did awesome things, and then you get these little tidbits of their origin like just peppered through these issues. It's so cool because it's tantalizing. It makes you want to like be like, yo, like, where's the origin? You know what I'm saying? It's like some of these characters like Storm and Wolverine, we didn't even get origins till to like 2005, where Marvel actually like dedicated comics to their actual origins. So, and it's just like through these little tidbits though, it's just like, yo, like this is awesome. It's like, oh wait, she's claustrophobic. Oh wait, like, she back in Africa, she actually like stole stuff. That's why she knows how to fight and stuff. Or like Wolverine, it's like, oh, he was like military dude, like, yo, that's why he's gruff as shit. And it was just so masterfully done how Chris Claremont just peppered in these little origin stories, or like these little tidbits about their origins within each one of these like just completely organic moments.
Yes.
And it's crazy because like that's what makes them so memorable, because it's like, like these villains were just like, okay, they're a villain, they fight people, they stomp them, that's what the X-Men do and stuff like that. But the emotional parts, it's like that's what we're talking about.
That's
like
the real villain
50 years later. Like 50 years later, like we're talking about like how these characters were so well fleshed out in a continuing flowing story. Like remember, this shit was coming out like monthly at that point. So it's just like, yo, like they had all of this shit, and the way that it builds upon all of these characters stories going forward, like what Bearded said earlier, like it's not the first time anybody's going to go into Storm's mind, but the progression you see with that, like every single time, it's like, yeah, I did this before. Seems like, so like the very last time it happened when somebody tried to go into her mind, she easily overcame that within like 2 panels. And you see why she can do that by going back in these other comics and seeing it's like, oh, she's done this before. This ain't new to her.
Exactly. So it's kind of, you said Wolverine. I did like Wolverine's little like moment where he was like, they're like, he just killed that thing, and then he was like, this is what I do, I'm a monster. And Sokka's like, he ain't dead though. He was like, what? So I love that Wolverine like was really having a moment where he was like, I did feel the animalistic part of myself take flight, take precedent in the situation. I did see how I could kill someone if this is not, had this been a different situation. I do see that. So I liked how we got that moment. Wolverine, again, split second, but very, very sentimental, where I was like, whoa, this is like prime time Wolverine vulnerability moments where he catches himself, what I'm saying, after the fact. He was lucky to know that, this is a demon we're dealing with, it's not a human, but I still appreciated that limitation that he realized himself. But yeah.
And the fact that it was Scott, like, it just goes into the fact that it's like, yo, like, this is why they have that respect for each other. This is why they're in a polyamorous relationship right now. You know what I'm saying? Because that's that respect that they have. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody else looked at him like a killer, but it's like, I mean, Cyclops looked at him like a killer too, but it's like, yeah, I understand that. Even though it's like, yeah, this is a demon, whatever, you didn't kill him. It's like, bruh, like, I get you. I'm here for you, but we're doing this, so get your head back in the game. I'm with you. And I think that's the stuff that really, like, Wolverine really respects.
Right. So to kind of end off this final issue, I do like the Wolverine and Nightcrawler little mini thing. I think that was such a cute conversation they had, how we kind of see them go against each other. I love the nicknames they have for themselves. I love how Wolverine calls Nightcrawler an elf. I think it's very much befitting to his personality. I think it's so cute and genuine, because he could have called him something way harsher, but he was like, you look like an elf, But I love their conversation where they both kind of like get to know each other and, look at their abilities, look at where they come from. And, and then we get kind of like more of a sentimental moment with Nightcrawler where he's like, I can't go out looking like the way I look, like I gotta, blend in. And how Tony Stark made that the device for him. I was like, wait, hold on.
The cameos, that's something we don't talk about, like in these couple like issues. It's like, yo, there's a lot of fucking cameos.
They even referenced the Hulk in Star Wars. I was like, hold on, Disney, was y'all plotting this whole time? I loved it.
Long-term booking.
But yeah, so what were your thoughts on like that little issue?
I thought it was pretty cool. Like, I appreciate it. I think there was something similar in X-Men Evolution, right? Like, where Kurt, like, you already know that Kurt has like, these self-esteem issues with like how he's presented to the world, looking like a demon. But I thought the fight was cool, first and foremost. I thought the fight was cool between them because it showed Kurt that like, hey, you have to be a little bit more strategic when you're using your powers, because the season's gonna whoop your ass. But then I really appreciated like, Wolverine being there and showing that like, all right, like, yeah, like I could be an asshole, but I'm also quite empathetic as well. So that was definitely appreciated, that chapter, and that little. I love these friend stories they added to there.
And again, the art. I love the artist who does this artwork on this chapter. It's so good. I love it.
Yeah, I love this. I thought this was really cool. I loved watching Wolverine like try to get Nightcrawler out of his comfort zone. It's like, don't be afraid of what you are. Like, people, you should want people to try to accept you, even though he's seen the opposite, right? Like, Wolverine is forcing him to do that. And you can see his confidence like towards the end of it, where he is coming into himself and he's walking the streets, and when like the bar owner didn't discriminate against him at all, it helped him feel confident. So for me, that's another great hero moment. There's something for a hero to not just like defeat a villain and save the day, but to help a friend feel more confidence in themselves when they feel like they need to hide away from the world. Like, that's a hero to me. So I love that story, and I loved like the dynamic between the two characters.
Y'all, let me tell y'all. Let me just tell y'all real quick. Like, two things y'all gonna hear from me on this podcast: my love for Scott Summers, and the motherfucking relationship between Nightcrawler and Wolverine. I love it so much. We're already running over time, but I'm just like, in this context, I just love it so much because like this is the beginning of all of that, and I loved seeing that as a fan of their relationship specifically. It's very much like devil meets angel, stuff like that. I'm so bad, I'm irredeemable and stuff like that, but on the other side, it's like I'm trying to be so good, but I'm always pulled into some bullshit. And it's just like their relationship gives each other so much grace. And I love that about them too, because they give each other so much security. Nightcrawler feels that his faith is being rewarded because he is reaching somebody as deplorable as Wolverine. Whereas Wolverine feels like he might be like, there is redemption in my, like, I am, no matter how long this road is, no matter how much bullshit I went through, there is redemption. This person who honestly has to deal with more than me just on a regular basis believes in me and believes in this higher power and believes in just my being of all of that. Like I said, I could go for hours about this relationship. I love it I love it so much, guys. But it's like there's a panel really just like in the first issue of the Krakoa era of like House of X, where they're assaulting this base and they're like right next to the sun, and basically Nightcrawler and X-Men and Wolverine have to basically sacrifice themselves in order to destroy this giant base. And it's just one panel, and it encompasses everything that we're talking about with all of these relationships starting, because he just looks to Nightcrawler because Nightcrawler's got to teleport him out like next to the sun, and they're both just gonna burn up. And he's just like, yeah, is he looks at Nightcrawler's like, is there anything waiting for me? And Nightcrawler just without hesitation just looks at him, is like, for you, my friend, there is the land of all the greatest splendors and all of that. And it's just like, again, having the way that is mutually beneficial for both of them. Nightcrawler having his faith rewarded by giving faith to somebody else, and Wolverine getting faith being a quote unquote hopeless person is just so amazing. And then they just burn up and stuff like that. But then in the next panel you see Cyclops and he's looking at all of this happen, and he's watching Wolverine like just burn up and like fall into the sun, and just looks at him like, that's the bravest man I ever knew. And I'm just like, this is why we love the X-Men. This is why we love the fucking X-Men. This man started off hitting on your girlfriend and you wanted to, and hating his guts. And for us to like go from this, what we're talking about here, to where we're at currently, it's some of the best storytelling in all of comics.
Right. So I love that. So to wrap things up, y'all, what is your favorite chapter? I think we all kind of agree, but kind of ranking, what is your favorite chapter out of these 4 issues?
For me, it's Morning, hands down. It's issue 3. It's just so well written. Yeah. It's so well done. The art's amazing. Again, just watching Wolverine just like track through, looking for his body, realizing that he was also a Marine, a soldier, someone that he fought along beside, someone that he actually respected in the end. So absolutely love that chapter.
Peter
Definitely. Oh, well, good.
I think my favorite chapter was the Danger Room chapter. I like the whole like dynamics of that. I really appreciated that, watching them come together as a team, watch people leave. Like I thought that was just a really interesting chapter as a whole. I did like Morning a lot, don't get me wrong, but I appreciate that chapter now because it was like, all right, fresh start, let's get it going.
I actually liked the side chapters way more than like the actual main like stories that were going on, and this is why it's the main reason why I suggested we read through X-Men Classic, because it has those stories in there. But it's just like some of the best stories. I think it's like one of the best ones was like the pool party one. where you have all of them just going in and it's just like a regular pool party. And Nightcrawler is, because we've seen him, like everything that we were just talking about is just like religion, seriousness, I've been persecuted, what I'm saying? They threw rocks at my head, all of that. And then to see him, it's like, okay, he's finally in a place where he's accepted fully for who he is, and he acts a fool. And it makes sense. Like his character in X-Men Evolution was like, people were like, how does he get from this to this? It was like, it makes sense. That is his character as well. He was a fun loving, not necessarily a kid in the comics, but younger in the comics. And, he was playful and he did all of that. And then just going into how these funny instances just captured everybody's character, like, like Storm coming out butt ass naked, what I'm saying? Again, problematic. Like, I'm just like, why do they think Africans don't wear clothes? But then at the same time, it was funny because it's just like the way that everybody looked at, you see like Wolverine just looking at him, it's like, hey darling, what's good? And then you like Colossus, like just the biggest,
immediately took off
dude.
his shirt, immediately was like,
such a gentleman, a gentleman, just
sweetheart.
came in and just like, you know what, just put this on, just be modest, stuff like that. And just like in those 2-3 panels, you get so much character from like all of them. I love that one story so much. That's like my favorite out of all of them.
I enjoyed mourning like JB. I like the art style was amazing. I love the story. I loved everyone's mourning process. It wrapped up everything that the chaoticness that just happened. It did everything so fluidly, and you really see them become a family in that moment. After suffering the loss of a family member. So that's mine. All right, guys, that wraps up episode 1 of Mutants Only. We did it. Yes, I love it. I'm really excited for the future of this podcast. I'm really excited to see more X-Men show up. Some really great issues. I can't wait for the next batch that you're going to read. So if you guys want to start off and tell the people where you can find them at, but they can find you at, not them. Who you don't care about them.
You guys can follow me all over social media at JBxclusive. You want to find absolutely everything that I do, go to carefulforspoilers.com. You'll find all of the articles that we write on there in movies, TV shows. We're also doing a bunch of Halloween lists right now. So best slashers, best possession horror movies. Check those out on the website. You'll also find links to all the podcasts on the network. So check us out there.
Yeah, Bearded Blerd, you want to go next?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram or Facebook at Bearded Blerd. Twitter is where you'll find Facebook. Not Facebook at all. Please don't. I'm not even on there. On Twitter or Instagram, Bearded Blerd with Blerd with 2 D's and a 1. Link to my Instagram is there. You can also come and join Anime Improv, have a good time on Monday nights at 9, where we just come and put random anime, video game, comic book, and pop culture characters into random scenarios, and we have people act them out. No professional experience needed. Judgment-free zone. 18 and up.
And you can find me, Blerd Central, BLERD Central, just everything, Twitter, YouTube. Check out the YouTube coming up. I want to have my first essay coming out. I want to have that pretty soon. Hopefully after this drops out. It's going to be about Uncle Iroh and positive masculinity. So check that out, and check me out on Twitter for just general shit posting and Power Rangers edits.
Yes, I can't wait. Yes, well, also make sure y'all follow Prince LOL and everything. He had to leave for his stream. But yeah, guys, look, it's your girl Spicy Lady. You can find me on everything Spicy Lady Entertainment on Instagram and TikTok, Spicy Lady T on Twitter, and Spicy Lady Talks on YouTube. Got new videos coming to the channel real soon. Got a few up there. Got a few other comic book iterations I'm working on. But y'all, thank y'all for joining the brotherhood, y'all. I hope you enjoy this podcast, and hope this podcast inspires you guys to start to want to read the X-Men comics. I know it's a lot at first, but when you are enthralled with these characters, you will be happy that you took that leap forward. And peace out.